Yeah, but see, I don't.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome everybody to Barrington Board of Selectmen's meeting for tonight. If you will please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank everybody for coming out tonight. First agenda tonight is under appointments is Joshua Coloni and for Swain Road Class 6 section. Please.
Okay, so I'm here tonight just to talk to you about the Class 6 section of Swain Road. And I printed these out for everybody. Just for those of you who aren't familiar, just to orient you to where it is. It's off of Route 9, and you see that little car icon there at the top. The road is about a mile and a quarter long. The town maintains about 0.7 miles of the road, and then we as residents of the Class 6 section maintain a half-mile stretch. And the other thing that's on there is the town forest. You can see that green outline there. That's the town forest, about 40 acres. And there's the little yellow pin there, and that's the parking lot. And you can fit about 15 cars around, something like that there. And that's about 0.4 miles down that stretch of unmaintained, so essentially at the end of the Class 6 section. If you turn to that second page, these are areas that the town publicizes the town forest. They do it on their website, the Conservation Commission website. At the end of the road, there's a sign letting people know that the town forest is down there, and there's also a sign further down the road. It's advertised as an educational area for school children, for school groups. People take walks there. Recreation in the past 15 or 20 years has increased, and since we've been there, we've noticed a big increase in traffic on this road. A lot of people going to the town forest, using it for recreation, mountain biking, so on and so forth. So our concerns are that if we didn't maintain this road, it really would not be accessible for other people in the town. Every year we snow plow, we get together grading money and we grade the road. We do ditch work, culvert work, things of that nature to keep it passable. And really in really bad years, spring rains, it gets terrible. You get lots of big ruts and mud and things of that nature. So really, people wouldn't be able to get down the road if we didn't maintain it. And the second concern is that the town publicizes this, which is great. You want people to go out there and use it. You want kids to go out and enjoy the wilderness. But by doing so, there's more traffic on the road, and more people are using it. And finally, so we pay as residents of the road, we pay to maintain it. It's publicized by the town, and therefore it gets a lot of traffic, and so a lot of people benefit from that road and the work that we do on it to use the town forest. So, long story short, we are requesting that the town think about taking over the maintenance of the road. It's a short section of road. The town has the heavy equipment to do so. It's another 0.5 miles for plowing, and if you think about all the towns and all the roads in the town of Barrington, it's a very small percentage for plowing. Obviously, we're not requesting paving or anything that, but just grading in the spring and fall and filling in potholes and things of that nature. So I think that sums it up.
Questions from the board? Tracy?
How many homes are in the point?
There's about 11.
Just in the 0.7.
Well, that's the 0.5 mile section. There's about 11 homes.
11 homes.
No.
Any questions?
No.
Yeah.
I would realize I drove down, took pictures of it, and the road agent did too. I understand where you're coming from.
Sure.
Would you, if the town was to do some maintenance on it, would you consider doing the plowing if we took care of the gravel?
Dan, that's a question we're gonna have to discuss later on after we determine what we're going to do. What I would like for us to do is to turn around and have John get in touch with Peter and do a walkthrough of the road, figure out what it's gonna cost and everything else, and then once we get the cost to upgrade the road, then have all of us sit back down again and make that determination as to who's gonna do what, who's gonna pay what. That was something I think would be acceptable to everybody, but at least we know what the cost is going in before we just start asking people to plow if we put the road in.
Well, they'll definitely come back and.
That's exactly what, so that's a good question. Anybody else have anything else? John, would you get a hold of Peter and ask, work with Peter to get a price to bring this road up? What it would cost to bring it up, then we would sit down. And I think when we do sit down, we should ask the Conservation Commission to sit down here with us. I see so many of us here just there. But if you'd do that, I'd appreciate it.
I would also believe we should have our engineer in on that discussion as well, that we regularly use on roads. And I'm not quite sure what the availability of everyone is, but I will get a message to them to start looking into it. One of the issues is going to be there are a variety of different standards to which you could improve the road. There's a question of whether or not you want to keep it a Class 5 road, keep it a Class 6 road or move it up to a Class 5. There is such a provision as an emergency lane. There is a summer cottage, they call it, but it actually can apply throughout the year for maintenance at less than a town standard. There's the standard we use when we give a building permit on a Class 6 road that we've applied down there for width and surface. So it's not going to be one clear-cut answer. If you put X number of dollars in, then everything's all set.
I just think it's one of the things I would ask you to have the engineer consider. What would be the total cost to do the 1.25 miles also, instead of just doing that little section in the end? So we can at least have a chance to have the figures together when we all sit down to talk it over.
Is the first section paved?
Yeah, I guess I wasn't clear on that, but that first 0.75 miles is paved. It's a town-maintained road. So they're already plowing and maintaining to that point. And then there's another half-mile section after that.
Okay, so right here where you have the Class 6 road begins, that's it.
Yeah, and we're not requesting it to be paved. We're just, I think a lot of people down there probably like the dirt and things like that. It's just become very burdensome to take care of it when other people aren't doing it.
That'd be the- Dan?
Can you sign this and, we put your name on at the back and the information will get back all to you? When we, on the back page.
Give that to the clerk, please.
Right.
What do you want me to do, just sign?
Put your name and number so
Oh, okay.
the clerk will get the minutes right and she'll be able to get a hold of you.
John? I'm sorry, Tracy?
Chair Bailey, I have a question for John in reference to this. Should this be adopted, is there an unintended consequence that potentially the homeowners living in that section would see taxes increase because they are now on a Class 5 road, not a Class 6?
That's a difficult question to answer because in Barrington, homes on private roads are selling close to what they are on
Okay.
public roads.
You leave that
So,
more people.
it could be a little, but we're not looking at enough of a change to pay for the cost through the increase in taxes.
I wanted the homeowners to be aware that there could potentially,
Well,
Very
and
good.
one of the options that the board may consider is what is known as a betterment assessment, where the homeowners pay an additional fee for the next 10 years towards the cost of improving the road in exchange for the road. So there's a lot of options out there. It's too early to go down any one path. I will also be calling our attorney to talk about what options are there, either short of a Class 5 or other alternatives to pursue.
Satch.
Being a Class 6 road, how does that affect the insurance to the town? It would seem
I
to
don't
me we
see that it
encourage.
has any effect on the insurance because we're covered based on our total budget and our total liabilities, so.
Because we encourage people to use it, and I think that's a great thing. But you'd hate to see someone get hurt, and, well, that's your problem.
What some towns do to protect themselves against liability in this situation, not that it makes, I mean, it's in transparency, I should say, not liability. To make it transparent is put a sign up saying the town does not maintain this and you're driving at your own risk.
Is there a sign there?
There used to be, I don't know if there still is.
I know we used to put them around, I don't know if
There are on a lot of
Yeah.
them, but, and there used to be there, but I don't think it's there anymore.
it's
What
possible.
sign you talking about?
A sign that says, Class 6 road not maintained by the town, use at your own risk.
No, there's nothing there.
It's come down.
Is there any more questions from the board? Thank you very much for coming. We'll get back with you. Thank you. Next on the agenda is the Recreation Commission. Who's representing what here? Thank you. Let the record show it's Tara, please. Yeah. I had that ready.
Okay, we have some appointments. The Rec Commission would like to recommend reappointment for Jim Noble as well as Stephen Graves.
That is scheduled under new business to be, except I've had your paperwork before tonight, so they are scheduled to be voted on in new business.
Okay, I'm not sure.
Not sure on what, please. You asked for Stephen Graves and for Mr. Noble, and that's what we're going to do under,
Is that later in the meeting?
Right.
yes, it is, later in the
Okay,
meeting. That was there. That should have been told to
I'm
you.
not sure. So am I not needed to speak?
No, if you want to talk about the individuals in a positive manner, and how the board feels, that would be acceptable.
Right now, we're later. I'm so sorry.
You can do both.
I don't
You can do it now, and we'll just carry it over, and we will talk about it when I sit to the,
Okay, yeah, that'd be good, yes.
okay. I apologize for that. Next time, I'll make sure that you're notified. I understand. Thank you.
Chair,
Matt?
I asked if we move the schedule around and then move these ahead so that they're all sitting here.
Let me finish with the fire chief, and then we can do that before public comment. I'll ask the board then. Okay. Fire chief, please, Chief Walker.
Thank you for your time. The FEMA has a part of the grant program. They have what they call a SAFER grant program. It's staffing for adequate fire and emergency response. And the intention behind it is to assist communities with proper staffing for fire and EMS services. For a number of years, a lot of this money went to the larger communities that had layoffs, and they used the money to bring the employees back. And FEMA decided that that really wasn't the intent behind the grant program. So this year they put an emphasis on new hires. There's about $345 million. Sounds like a lot of money, but when you break it out into 50 states, it's really not a lot of money. It's a competitive grant process in which we would apply to hire staffing for the fire department, and the grant would, it's a 3-year grant, and it pays 75 cents on the dollar for the first 2 years and 35 cents on the dollar for the third year, with no requirement to continue employment. It used to be a 50-50 match with a requirement that you had to keep them for a year after. And They have since gone away from that, figured if they gave more money to get it up and running and for the communities to get used to that expense, that they have a tendency after 3 years to keep the employees. So I'm asking for permission to move forward with the grant. There's a really short window to get the paperwork in and apply for the grant. So really all I need at this point from you folks is either yay or nay to move forward and attempt to get the grant. Should the grant pass, you'll have to hold a public hearing to accept the grant. We have 180 days. Once the grant's awarded, we have 180 days to have the people hired. If we're not able to make those hires within that 180 days and the grant goes away. That's pretty much where I'm at. My 5-year plan is to be in a spot where we had 2 people on round the clock, 7 days a week. This would go a long ways to, yes, it moves it up, but I was just, in speaking with FEMA, we had a meeting a month ago, chief's meeting, and the FEMA regional director had said that this is a direction they were going in, so I thought it was reasonable to make an attempt. I think Barrington's in a unique situation that we would certainly qualify for the assistance. I think they're trying to look at communities that are trying to get their staffing up to where it needs to be. My intention, should we be successful with the grant, is we put them people on. We'd do the staffing during the day so that there'd be, at least in the short term, there'd be 4 of us around during the day, Monday through Friday, and 3 on the weekends. And then over time, as working with the board to get to where we ultimately wanted to be, then we would move hours around in which the staffing would, 3 or 4 years out, would end up going on to a shift in which we were able to put 2 people on around the clock.
Do you have any idea what would be the cost would be to the town?
Rough numbers, I think I do have a rough idea. Rough numbers I put together, the first year I think you're going to be looking at about $40,000, second year about the same thing, and then in the third year it would be probably around 85 or 90,000.
Good county benefits.
Yes. So what the grant allows us to do is hire the individual, pay their benefits, buy their gear, buy their uniform. So anything that fits within the category of if we were going to hire a new hire tomorrow morning, it fits holiday pay, vacation pay, all that stuff is included. What it does not include is it does not include cost of training and equip firefighters. So if we were going to hire somebody that wasn't certified, that doesn't cut it. In New Hampshire, we can't hire somebody that's not certified. It does not cover overtime cost, and it does not cost. It doesn't cost fund promotions. The other thing that's important to understand is that if we hire off the grant program, if these individuals, it does not include pay raises. So if the town were to fund pay raises over the 3 years, then the town would be obligated to pick that portion of it up.
All right. Questions from the board, Dan?
I support this. I'll make a motion to support for him to apply for the grant, and then I come back with a comment afterwards.
Let's hold your motion, please, if everybody has a chance to speak first. Mrs. Hatch, you have any comment?
I support it too.
I do.
You second?
Tracy?
I have some questions for the chief.
Sure.
Is there anything that requires the individuals hired under this grant that they be retained for all 3 years? In other words, could you potentially hire a firefighter, train have them acclimated to your fire department, and within 2 years, they then go to a larger city department?
That's a very good question, and no, the town would be obligated to fill the position. And part of the grant process is that we have to fill paperwork out that says we currently have my position and the other 2 full-time positions are staffed. And the grant also requires that then my position and the 2 other full-timers positions be staffed. Now, if myself or one of them left, the town has a certain window to replace them. So in other words, it's designed that they're pretty specific about you couldn't lay off your 2 full-timers and then hire 2 new ones to take their place, so.
And what is your current days to fill when you do have an opening? Is it taking 30 days to find appropriate applicants? Is it taking 90 days? What's your days
I
to fill position?
think you're probably looking at a 90-day window. That would give us, should the grant be awarded, that would give us to get an ad into the paper and get it out onto the state listserv and stuff. And then we would accept applications for probably about a month window. Then we go through the interview process and the whole board process. And then once we make a conditional offer of employment, you have to go through the background check and make sure that they're CPAT certified and that stuff. So it's probably a 90-day window.
Yeah, I can appreciate the, excuse me, the desire to do it and everyone's positive support of it, but it's not something we budgeted for or planned for in our budget. So we would be going against what our commitment was to the voters when they voted on a budget to suddenly add a new position midway through the year and incur that cost.
I think, Andy, and that's a good point, I think that the way FEMA operates, it would not even be a little bit out of the realm of possibility that it could be November or December of next year or this year if it was even advertised or I should say approved. I don't think it happens that quickly. I think the only thing that we would have to look at from a budgeting standpoint is that we would have to look at coming up with our 25% in the 2019 budget process with an eye toward whether you put that money into your contingency fund with a specific purpose to should the grant be awarded, or you put it in the grant line of my budget with the idea that if the grant's not awarded, the money doesn't get spent. So I think that it's probably, I think we're safe for this year.
My other area where I have a bit of heartburn on this is we took a big whack in the fire budget a year ago, like to the tune of $60,000+. So to suddenly come back and take another big whack at it is a little bit painful.
Well, I don't think I've made any bones about the fact that the fire service, fire and emergency service, medical services, the way that we knew them for 20 years ago when you relied heavily on volunteers, them days are gone. I'm going to give you a perfect example. The other day, during the day, the 3 of us on staff, there were no other people. I had 1 driver around town. So you're asking us to protect $1 billion worth of property, about 9,000 residents, with 3 people during the day and a call force at night. Everybody's struggling. You know, I don't care if you go to the city of Rochester, or you go to the city of Dover, or Durham, or you talk to Lee and Madbury and Stratford, and we're all having our struggles. It's not, people aren't beating the doors down to come back. And I try as hard as I can to make sure that we're providing the services that we need as economical as we can. But I firmly believe that I don't see where there's any choice but in the next 5 or 6 years, you're going to be forced to be paying people to be around the clock. I think it's a necessary evil. 30 years ago, we had 2 or 3 part-time police officers that could get out of work at 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon and rode around town till 9 or 10 o'clock at night, and the state police took over. And the town soon realized that that wasn't going to continue to work, that to provide the coverage that we need. So I'm very proud of the volunteers that we have. I think they do a good job. I don't think that the residents in our community should feel less than safe. I don't even for a little bit of a second believe that in painting doomsday pictures. That's not my style. But I am a realist, and I think whether any of the 5 of you that's sitting at the table right now are here in 5 years, the sad fact is that whether we like it or not, I don't like it. I'm a taxpayer here too. The current model is broken. It needs to be fixed, and I think that when that we have an opportunity here to apply for a grant. If the grant doesn't go, then we'll go back to the drawing board, but it's coming.
My question to you next would be is training. So if this were to be approved and we started with the training and the individual we had going through training that gets picked up under the FEMA, if that individual took a hike, are you allowed to use the remaining balance of that to find somebody else to work for you?
That's correct.
Okay.
You have to understand that on the fire service, you have to be certified. You can't be hired. You can't be brought onto the job. Unlike police.
I appreciate I got the answer I was looking for about the individual.
So it's not about training. They got to be ready to go on day one.
I'll rephrase it. What I'm saying to you is if we had an individual that was qualified, we put him into the FEMA program, and then he was going through about halfway through the program, he says, I'm all done, he takes a walk. Can we still use the remaining
Yes.
balance of that to go
We're
for
obligated.
another individual?
The town is obligated to fill that position.
Okay.
Or give FEMA back
And
then.
it's, Tracy?
I noticed in reading the SAFER grant application material, there's also a component where you could be applying for dollars that would help boost, advertise, and support the volunteer structure as well. Have you considered that, and why or why not?
I felt that the safer route to go after the employees first was more important. I'm certainly not opposed to doing a recruitment and retention drive. I don't think there's enough time to adequately do both of them. We have the ability to do both, but you have to do two totally separate narratives. You can't combine the application. I think the window's too short right now.
And
Chairman, I think this is a two-part question. That's why I started off. I think that's why I made the motion to accept it. And my second, I was going to come back for all this data and for the future impact and stuff. But I think we should apply for the grant, and then I was going to ask the fire chief to provide data and more information before we make the final decision.
Well, I think it's important.
I think the fire chief has been very adamant. The fact is that he doesn't have very much time on this to get it to working so he can make the proper application of it. You've already made a motion to accept the motions on the table, and so now that we've had the rest of the discussions, who wants to second that motion for the acceptance of?
I'll second it.
We have a second. We've had discussion. Have a vote, please. Tracy, if you'll start it one way or the other.
I'm going to vote in favor of applying for the grant.
I vote for applying for it.
Mrs. Hatch?
I vote for the
Aye.
Aye also, so it's an affirmative, so we go ahead and we can move forward with it.
Thank you, and to answer Dan's question, this is all part of the grant process, so I have to have a pretty detailed thing in which I'll have to work with the finance. So before you folks, should we be lucky enough to receive the grant, I put the likelihood somewhere around 12 or 15%, to be honest.
Well, you've been pretty fortunate so far on getting grants for us, so I think that,
Yeah.
I'd like to put us at about 85%.
After a while, the luck runs out.
Well, then you just,
Him again?
yeah.
Thank you.
Now, my second part is, when this gets along more, he'll bring back more data.
He just said he would, yes.
Right, so that's.
We'll have all that information. And then also to go on what Andy has said is that we'll have time to consider it when he does his budget. We'll have that added to it, and we'll go from there.
Well, we're gonna have to figure out how to make up not only the cost of the balance of this year, but until the next budget kicks in, which is March, and is approved by the voters, we have to make up January and March.
But he stated it wouldn't be until 19 when he got it back, so I don't think we would have to worry about that. But I agree with you, we will look into it and go from there. John?
Yeah, that's what the contingent fund is for, is unexpected opportunities. In fact, at one point, we called it opportunities fund. So when opportunities arise for us to do something, I think this is an opportunity. It's quite clear that the fire departments are moving increasingly towards coverage. And one point that was not brought out, much of the cost of the department is borne by the users in the ambulance. We take in well over 200,000 right there. So.
Well, I'm speaking kind of out of one side of my mouth this way, and when we hit the technology side, I'm advocating for them to get the same technology that the police cruisers have in their cars,
Yep.
so.
What I'm looking for next is I'm looking for the board to approve the moving of the meeting down to new business, the new business to accept consideration and discussion on Recreation Commission members. Does anybody object to doing this?
No.
All right, so we will move forward. 2, under new business for Recreation Commission member. We have 2 individuals that are recommended by the Recreation Commission for renewal. They are Stephen Graves and Jim Noble. Does anybody have any reason why we shouldn't approve these? Seeing none, I'd like to have a vote.
Which one's, your Graves?
I'm Jim Noble. Jim Noble.
Right, and then Graves, and then
Graves.
Graves, so then, all right. I know you, and I read your application. I'm all set.
So if not, may I have a,
I'll make a motion to reapprove Stephen Graves and Jim Noble.
we have a first, we have a second.
I'll second it.
It's already been seconded by Tracy. Vote, Dan?
Yeah, right.
That's right.
Haley, aye.
Camp I.
Thank you.
Those 3-year terms.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And,
Three-year terms of full member, correct?
Yes, 3-year terms, right here. And we'll hand these out to be signed, and we'll go from there. I'm sorry for your time. I'm sorry for the misunderstanding. I apologize to the whole board on that aspect of it. And if you're going to ask me about the other individual, he will be discussed in non-public session, because there might be some individuals that would have not so upfront information they want to say, so I don't want it to be out in public. I want to maintain the reputation part when we discuss it. And we'll go from there.
Will we be involved in that conversation?
No.
Would now be an appropriate time for Tara to share why this person's name is being brought forward?
Does the board object?
No, I don't.
Please, go ahead.
Okay. June?
Yes.
The Rec Commission would like to recommend Dennis Haug for appointment to the Rec Commission to fill the vacant seat that we have. We are starting to move forward, hopefully continuing to move forward, finding new members to join our board. So we're very happy to have somebody step forward and have at least a discussion with us and come to 2 meetings, two monthly meetings, and sit down with the board and be involved with those conversations, and really want to be involved and understand how the department works, but also bring the knowledge of not so much municipal recreation, but just recreation in general. And I'll let you speak about this a little bit if that's okay, because I feel he has master's degree in emergency management. He has a bachelor's in adult education, welfare and recreation, and he was a softball coach in, I don't know what state, but a softball coach, as well as he is a Maine Search and Rescue Associate and Volunteer Coordinator. So he has the qualifications that we're looking for. He's dealt with volunteers before, he's worked in recreation before, he has the knowledge. He seems very knowledgeable in budgets and asks the appropriate questions and isn't afraid to ask the questions if he doesn't know the answers or doesn't understand what I'm talking about during the meeting. Anything else? Does anybody want to add anything?
He's an all-around good guy.
Yeah. Good. And I appreciate the time you put into talking with us at both those meetings and through emails. So, thank you.
Tara, board members, I appreciate you coming forward. We will take your comments for discussion. Yes.
Sure. Just so we continue to have staggered terms, you've just appointed 2 people to go to 2021, correct? And that's Jim and Steve.
Yep.
And Lisa is going to 2020. Jill to 2019. So I would assume this is going to be an appointment for 1 or 2 years to maintain staggering. Is there a preference which of it is?
I mean, I would prefer 2, just so that there's a little bit more consistency.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we state that, because if we appointed 3 for 3, then we'd have 3 running out the same year, so. Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming forward and appreciate it. And we'll, after we have our meeting, Tara, after we have our meeting, we'll get back with you and let you know where we're at. And if we need any information, we will do that. And if we need to, we'll get Mr. Haig, correct?
Howard, sir.
Howard?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm sorry. And we'll bring him forward and we'll discuss it with him.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Did you guys want to hear from Dennis before we?
Not right now, no, thank you.
All right.
Yep.
Will we be taking a vote after the non-public?
It might be.
We might be.
Oh, right.
Okay, now that we've moved from new business,
I'm so sorry. I totally forgot something. Can I?
I don't know if I should or not. Go ahead, I'll let you.
I had requested that both Jim and Steve be sworn in at this meeting. Is that something that we can do right now?
No, there's no one here, right?
Yeah, you guys can.
What do you mean?
Board
members can do it.
Oh, yeah?
Read the charge to the 2 of them.
All right, so we're going to come up here.
You get to go swear. And George. I mean, with George.
Don't you wish? All right, I'm going to ask you to state your name and then say after me, please. I do solemnly and sincerely swear and affirm that I will faithfully and impartially discharge and perform all the duties
That I will faithfully and impartially discharge all the duties
incumbent upon me as a Recreation Commission member,
incumbent upon me as a Recreation Commission member
of Barrington, New Hampshire, for 3 years,
of Barrington, New Hampshire for 3 years,
according to the best of my abilities,
according to the best of my abilities,
agreeable to the rules and regulation of this Constitution,
agreeable to the rules and regulation of this Constitution,
the laws of the state of New Hampshire,
the laws of the state of New Hampshire,
so help me God.
so help me God.
This I do under the pains and penalty of perjury.
This I do under the pains and penalty of perjury.
Congratulations, good work.
Thank you, Karen.
They may have to sign that. Is there a place for them to sign?
Yes.
And then we'll figure out, we'll fill out the rest.
It's just a matter of
If they could sign the top line.
Where it says election official appointee signature, gentlemen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mr. Graves, first. Right here, please.
We take blood too.
Go for it. Just put your finger, okay, that's all you need? Yeah. Thank you very much. Please. Mr. Noble.
Now, did you tell them that you might be making a decision after this meeting or we're not?
Good. We might be.
Okay.
So should I
This
stay?
gentleman might,
Should we
might want to know.
Should we say, or should we,
We'll pass those around.
There could be a vote.
there could be a vote?
Vote to vote, so.
9 o'clock tonight, you go home.
Maybe.
We're going to close the new business section and move on to public comments. Maximum of 3 minutes for the individuals. Anybody have a public comment, please?
Yeah, well, I'll go, I'm not a,
Sure, you may speak.
thank you. There were 4 of us, John, Marcia, Barbara, and myself that attended Jay Whitlaw's retirement get-together in Laconia, and she seemed quite pleased with the turnout of everybody as far as that goes, and truthfully, one that's worked with her for many, many, many years, sad to see her go. But it was her choice. So that's about it for me.
Any other comments?
Casey O'Brien, 24 Hall Road. Just wondering if you guys have thought about any goals that you plan on having for the year. Perfect. Excellent.
Thank you for your attention, we appreciate it.
We'll take it under advisement.
Just asking.
Next on the agenda is a review of the minutes of March 26, 2018. Anything from the board?
I had a couple comments, I think it was corrected.
Yeah, I get US, thank you.
Oh, do you want me to make a motion to
I'm just
accept?
looking for a motion.
Oh, motion to accept the minutes.
Second.
Have a second? Have a
Yeah,
vote?
aye.
Atchai?
Haley, aye.
Napa.
Or about one.
All right, we're moving on to staff reports.
Okay, the first item I wanted to bring up, one of the things we've talked about is succession management. One way to do that is hiring an MPA student from UNH, part-time, and an internship or fellowship. Now, the Municipal Management Association of New Hampshire, which is a group of town managers and town administrators, and the Health Trust each contribute 1/3 of the cost of doing this in a set program. The student receives $5,500 for approximately 400 hours of work spread over 20 weeks. The town's total cost is $2,100. Another option would be simply to interview and hire someone from UNH who is a grad student on a part-time basis. You have more control the latter way, but you'd be bearing the full cost that way. And the applications are due this week if we're going to go for the fellowship. It's a competitive program in which the selection committee chooses the students, and then the 3 communities that are chosen between them work with the students as to which one is going where based on interest, location, factors like that. So as I said, with the grant, you save 2/3 of the cost, but you have a lot less flexibility. So I don't know which way the board would like to go, or if you'd just like to continue as we are.
Tracy, you have comments?
I do have comments. Because I'm very well, and I understand, John, you as well, graduated from this program a number of years back, but because I am a recent graduate of this program, I'm very aware that many of the recent graduates are moving straight from school into relatively comfortable paying positions. And in saying that, my recommendation would be the path of allowing the board to interview and choose graduates out of the program who have already had some experience in the workforce. I know that the average age in the cohort that I graduated from, excluding myself with the gray hair here, folks, was 25 to 33 years old. They were people who have taken on executive directorships, are working at the state level, both in Massachusetts and New Hampshire. So I think if our plan is to go forward and hire someone who's very well qualified, I think we need to go through creating a job description, looking at applicants, and hiring someone for an on-the-job training program here in Barrington. That's my comment and take on things.
Board have any comments or questions of Tracy, please?
I have comments. We talked about that big town meeting and even before, and there were several members of the town that were kind of all over us on that. They felt we were too early in that process when we started it at the kind of the end of this past year, and we're looking into the beginning of the year, big first quarter of the year from a hiring standpoint. Kind of my feeling on this is if you have the school doing all the screening work to find 3 applicants, or you're gonna, one, you know you're probably gonna have a pretty good candidate no matter which one of the 3 it is. And 2, they're eating 2/3 of the cost. And worst case scenario is if we don't end up wanting that person, we have no commitment to hire that person at the end of the fellowship. So it costs us $2,100 to have somebody here gaining experience and us accomplishing some of what we wanted to do. And if it actually works out in our favor, we have a great candidate to hire into potentially John's role.
In response to that, the school is not who's doing the hiring. The selection process is made through MMA-NH, and they would be choosing students who have not graduated from the program
Right.
that would be graduating.
Right.
In order to have this person trained and ready to hit the ground running in May of 2019, while I did not think that you should have 2, both a deputy and a town administrator, and I think I spoke to that in a public session, I do think that you need to potentially choose a candidate who has some work experience. This next round of MPA and MPP cohorts may be very well qualified individuals as well. But to take up the time and the resources that are needed to have this person hit the ground running in May and not have chosen that person.
So it's a fall position,
Mhm.
which means you're going to keep them from, you're going to have them from September to 20 weeks is going to get you to February, probably. Now, we're going to know pretty quickly into this if that would be somebody we would want to keep. And for about $2,100, that's a pretty inexpensive lesson to learn in this process. And if not, they gain a lot out of it and you gain a lot out of it.
Well, let me ask the question then. If we go on that assumption, so we find someone that doesn't fit the bill even after they've recommended it, what would be the process then? Would it be ostracized, or would they turn around and help us with another individual to come in?
I believe in the grant, I believe in this program, you'd be obligated to continue with that person to help them through, it's almost like a course. I don't know if they get credit for it, but it's like work experience, and you would be obligated pretty much to keep them unless there's something that's fireable, not just that you don't want to hire them long-term.
That's okay. All right, any other questions?
I
Thanks, Steve.
have
Please,
one
go
other
ahead.
thing. So when reviewing the application that John created, and again, this is from an HR standpoint, the essential position functions for the town administrator's job, in my opinion, cannot be gleaned from running an electronic storage of records program. I think the person needs to work side by side over a period of time to create budgets, to learn human resource functions, to learn management of employees. I'm all for saving money. In the long run, I don't think this is the best course of action in how you go about choosing your next town administrator.
Further discussion?
Has this decision got to be made tonight, or is something that we can, each
Yeah,
one of
because
us
you have
think of?
Week to apply.
Hmm?
Yeah, because he has to have the application.
Oh, okay.
I'll make a motion to move forward with potentially putting in the application with request for an intern/fellowship
We have a motion on the table.
I'll second that.
We have a second. Is there any further discussion, please?
Given that you don't have a job description in place for who this potential replacement could be, I disagree with that decision, but we can certainly go ahead with the vote.
Well, we can amend our
We'll go-
deputy town administrator job description. I mean, we have a job description, we're just not utilizing, that's in his proposal there, that's not the actual deputy TA position.
But if this is what, if the purpose of this is to use John to train someone, you're taking up his resources and his time. He can't both train a deputy town administrator and have an intern. And I think it's unrealistic to expect that of someone that's, you know.
John, what's your take on it, since you're the one that's gonna be,
I'm willing to go either route. I mean, I do think we need to start thinking about when I retire. And I think that that is important. I think either of the two suggested routes will work. My expectation is if we go this route with the intern, at the conclusion of during the internship, it would be more than just electronic storage and everything. It sounded to me from the application, they wanted a specific project that was measurable, that we could, set as a goal, and we'd have an endpoint, yes, not goal. But my expectation is also that I would try to have that person in that time, they wouldn't be spending 20 hours a week all the time on this project. So, certainly budget season, bringing them along through the budget. One thing I thought about going through records is it gives them a good handle on everything going on in town, from assessing to planning to building codes there's so many different records that we store that just understanding that would be a basis of a lot of what goes on. It doesn't get towards personnel management, which is a key aspect of what I do. It doesn't really get directly to budgets, but that's something we could work with as we go along. So there's a lot more to being a town administrator, but this seemed to be a way of starting the person along that path and seeing if we thought it was going to work.
it's an area where I look at that they would be here during the heart of budget season, so it would be a great way to connect them with the different department heads to learn how they do a budget. And whether we decided to continue forward with that person at the end, it would give them a great run of experience, and it gives us a good baseline to see what we want going into this.
I didn't put it in the application as much, but I would expect that person to be involved in budgets in a sense of understanding what's going on but that's really input. We're putting energy into the system, not so much what we're getting out of it.
Right.
I think we get more out in terms of if we can get a good answer to these questions on a here.
The question I have, we're not obligated at all to hire this individual to come, but at least we have the opportunity to see what is out there. We don't get caught with not having anything at all. Tracy?
I think you're giving up your opportunity of time for John to actually train someone that the board has selected that could potentially be successful in a succession plan. I'm not saying this person couldn't be. However, you're allowing MMANH to choose who that potential trainee is, and I think you're flipping a coin. And I'm of the opinion that in order to save money up front, we're flipping a coin.
Other comments from board members?
I understand where you both are coming from, but it's a start, and I think we should get a better working relationship with UNH and getting other programs along with them.
Is it a situation that, say for instance, down the road, even 2 months, whatever, 3 months down the road, that we can see he is not working out to what we want, are we still locked in it?
Well, they need to finish out the project that they've been assigned and working through
Just
that
their
project.
internship.
And then, thank you very much, have a good day.
Which even if you
So
look
then,
at hire it.
in essence, excuse me, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, even in the essence, to hire somebody in there as temp help for an internship, we would spend more than that for a summer intern than what
Right.
we would be with this person. And the way I look at it is a good program, you both get something out of it. They get the knowledge and education they're looking for, and we advance our programs or our process somewhere along the way.
Two comments.
Tracy makes a good point on the fact that maybe we'd be wasting our time or John's time to have that individual there, even though we understand he's here for about 20 weeks.
I think I can speak to the fact, having just gone through an internship, that, and understanding what the other 12 people in my cohort went through in their internships. I'm not saying in any way that this wouldn't prepare someone. I'm saying you're giving up as a board your ability to use John during this prime time that you have to know the person that you're going to bring into a position and to train them. You're giving that up to a private board to make that decision, and they will go through their application process and they will interview them. And I think, John, you could probably speak to this, but without meeting face to face with an individual and looking for just right fit in character, how they communicate, how they carry themselves, you may be entering into a program where you've taken your 9 months you have left or 11 months of resource to train someone, and you've given it up. And at that point, you may then have to make the financial decision to beg, borrow, steal, and retain on a consulting basis someone who would then train your next replacement. I think in order to save a few dollars, you're giving up what is your responsibility as a board in the hiring process.
See, I disagree. As a person who has mentored at least a dozen interns through and hired probably half of them into an organization afterward, I've always found that I've gotten good candidates. Even when they weren't candidates I interviewed, it was somebody else on the team that interviewed for me, bringing them in. And I've had to actually train other people for my role. In fact, I just hired a new safety manager for my company and have an intern coming in as well. So I'm going to be doing double duty on top of my new job. So I think it can...
I think you're willing to do that. John, are you willing to do that? Should we, 3 months from now, decide to go ahead with hiring? I think...
You've got 32 hours a week from me. I'm willing to put in some of that towards, excuse me, towards helping to train someone to be my successor. If I do that, then there are other things I don't do, but that's, to me, a priority, and if that's what you want me to focus on, that's what I'll focus on.
I think that if we're going to go on that aspect of what Tracy's saying, we're going to have our ducks in the water, not like we just did this last time. And we had quite a variety of individuals that were looking to be our assistants. So it's hard to find an individual. You get caught between a rock and a hard place when you have somebody that is qualified, and now we're going to have an individual that just says, here, I want the job, and then we have to go through that. We spent a lot of time on that last piece of work we did, so that's my comments. Anybody else? Well, we have a motion. Second by Dan. And we start at Dan's end this time.
Air aye.
Hatch eye.
Yeah, I'll go Bailey, aye.
Half aye.
Okay.
And just a reminder, this is a very competitive program, so we may not get it, so.
That's what I was going to say. I'm like, this is just, it's like the fire department. We're just basically apply for it.
In the meantime, John, I would like to, if Tracy would help, work with Tracy and put together a
Job description.
thank you, I was getting there. Job description so we can get this out and have it ready to go.
Well, I'm gonna
Is that
send,
acceptable to you, Tracy?
I'm gonna send
There's
this.
no requirement of a job description. He's already written, the person will be coming in, they'll be chosen by MMANH, and they'll be working on a records retention program.
Yeah.
But if we're saying in the future, we'd like to pursue another avenue as
That's what I was
well,
looking for.
then I would be glad to use my expertise.
Yes.
Thank you very
Why
much.
don't we, I mean, can, we still have a week to tweak that, or a few days to tweak that, right?
As long as somebody else can send it in, because
It's right here.
I won't be around.
It's
Yeah.
like the third.
So we'll just move forward. We voted to move forward to have that done, so go ahead and take care of that.
I will send it in. Now,
Take care of
everything is occurring in May, so if you have suggestions, we can do kind of an addendum as, when basically I'll be interviewed for this and the students will be interviewed and I'll be able to watch the students being interviewed, so.
I think it would be worth to do an addendum just to make it a little bit more, put a little more meat on the bone.
Oh,
We'll put
yeah,
that
if I could
request
try to
in.
do this over the weekend, I would have done much more.
Right.
All right, let's move on now. John, please move on to the next one.
Okay,
General
next
assistance.
item, general assistance, welfare. Every year, the board needs to review the schedule of assistance, which relates to realistic costs for food, food, housing, which is the big chunk for rental. And we use data, so we use the housing, we use the New Hampshire Housing Authority, we use Health and Human Services, we use the U.S. Department of Labor. And as you can see, the recommendations are there for 2018. There are relatively minor tweaks. One of the issues we're facing is rentals are scarce and the price is going up. So I need a vote to adopt the schedule.
Does anybody have any more discussion with John on this matter? Dan?
On a lot rent, that seems high.
That's a lot rent for a trailer.
Right, yeah.
400?
400 is what a lot of them are paying.
Right, 400, but this is 600 here.
Yeah,
It's
but
up to, correct?
Yes,
Doesn't
up
mean
to.
you're paying-
It's just a max.
some of them are 5.
And one of the
Some
parks
of
is
them
listed at
utilities and
1
others aren't.
That's
I
right.
mean, it is
Yeah.
gonna make a difference,
Yeah, it is.
whether it's utilities included or utilities not included.
Yeah, water and sewer, are they in or out?
If you look at them, 4 of them went up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them stayed the same and 1 went down. The 3-bedroom maximum allotment with utilities actually dropped.
Yeah, and the lot rent was 600 in 2017. I mean, that's not going up, that's staying the same.
Flat.
That's what you approved last year, was 600.
We have this information. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to accept them.
I have a motion, second by Mr. Knapp. Tracy,
Yes.
your vote to start.
Oh, yes, I'm in favor, right? Hard copy.
Not by.
Bailey, aye.
Patch eye?
Here, I.
Motion carries.
Just so you know, one other item, the food amounts actually dropped on there as well.
Yeah.
Because the food pantry.
Right, everything actually went down from the food vendor.
Okay, the name for the board, the law allows the selectmen, Board of Selectmen, to be called by other names. Select woman, select person, select board. They may be used interchangeably under the law with selectmen. I would be willing to use the word select person on anyone who chooses to use that term. Do you want a formal change in the name of the board to select board, or how would you like to proceed?
Discussion? Dan?
There's a lot of papers from the state, letterhead and stuff, will that all have to be changed?
Over time, we would, yes. We probably wouldn't throw out good letterhead at this point, but change it, yes.
I think it's an added expense.
Most letterhead we do off the computer, so it's just a matter of changing the template that we print, because we print it as we use it.
Well, stuff that comes from the state, what's the state send us?
We're not concerned with the state census, we're just concerned with what we have here with our expenses, Dan. Snatch, you have any comment?
Doesn't matter to me whether I'm called select woman, select person, or select man, so. It's just a title.
I have no thoughts on the matter. Andy?
I mean, I feel like everything works as it is, leave well enough alone and carry on the way we are, that way we don't have to change anything.
Yeah.
Tracy, you have comments, please?
Sure. I would like the title to read as Select Board, the position for the chairman to read as Chair of the Select Board, and for our titles to read as Select Person, because I think we're entering a time where more and more people from both genders are running for office, and that public boards should reflect that. I also think it encourages more people to run for offices, and it certainly is not, I think, a terrible imposition given that the variety of documents are stored electronically.
I mean, we could change the website, we could change, you know, a variety of places fairly easily.
So any other discussion on Tracy's comments? Did you want to make a motion on that?
Sure, I'd like to make a motion that Barrington change the position or the title of this board to the Select Board, that the position of the chairman be changed to the chair of the Select Board, and that we be titled Select People or Select Persons.
Which one?
Select Persons.
Select persons.
It does have the word son in there. Be careful.
Don't do that. We have a motion on the table. Do I have a second? I'll ask again. We have a motion on the table. Do I have a second? I will second that motion. We have a vote. Dan?
Abstain.
Abstain? Mrs. Hatch?
If it's important to anyone on the board, that's fine. So I'll say yes if it's important. To me, it isn't.
Well, it was important enough where one of the individuals made a motion, so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay,
That's
Bailey,
what I
aye.
said.
Nap aye.
Article.
Passes 4-0 with one abstention.
We will work at getting those changed. It won't be instantaneous, but we'll work at that.
When you get my business cards on there too, I'd appreciate that.
Yeah.
You can make changes on those.
We'll print some.
Next-
Chair Bailey, we'll print some.
Barry, you can take it out of my pay.
Next item, on the bid for the public safety building boiler, Paul Sanders and the engineer reviewed the specifications and recommend the award to K-Cobb Plumbing. This bid is $9,680 below the next bid. Quality assurance will be confirmed by final inspection with the engineer and the boiler inspection for the Department of Labor. That's the first piece. The second piece of this, at town meeting in 2010, Article 10, the town voted to establish a capital reserve fund. They appropriated $75,000. They appointed the selectmen as agents to expend for the purpose of completing improvements and/or to rehabilitate town-owned facilities. There's still $73,400 in the fund currently. My recommendation is the award to K-Cobb Plumbing with the funds for the $42,100 of cost to come from the capital reserve fund that was established in 2010.
Any comments of John from anybody?
I'll make the motion.
I have a motion
I'll second.
and seconded. Vote. Start Tracy, you're in.
Article.
Nap aye.
Bailey, aye.
Hatch aye.
Yeah, right.
Motion carries.
So the motion included a dollar amount and that the money's coming from the building
That's correct,
renovation.
as stated.
FEMA grant. As you know, the town of Barrington was authorized to apply on behalf of the Community Mutual Aid Association, of which we are a member, for an air van rehab unit. Barrington's only real contribution beyond annual dues is being a clearinghouse for the money. However, the bid process must follow the town's process. There are 3 vendors under consideration by CMAA, but rather than doing a new specification, they would like to use the federal GSA contract specifications and get quotes from 3 vendors that can meet that specification. So the question before the board is, will the board accept the federal GSA contract specifications and allow the CMAA to obtain 3 quotes from the list of approved GSA vendors that meet the requirement for the vehicle?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Dan?
I thought that was already done. I thought it was already purchased.
We agreed to purchase it. Now the question is, are you going to waive the town purchasing policy so they can follow this policy as a board instead of going out for, instead of developing a set of specs
All right.
and then going out for all the newspaper and everything else that's in our purchasing policy?
All right, I'm all set.
Can you start the vote, please?
Yeah, right.
That's right.
Bailey, aye.
Nap aye.
Hardikoff, aye.
Date for the all-board meeting, it appears the best date would be April 30th. That's a fifth Monday when no other meetings would normally be scheduled. Does the board wish to set April 30th as the date for the all-boards meeting?
What time?
6:30 here.
I'll make that motion.
Second it.
Have a second. Any further discussion? Tracy, start the vote, please.
Hardikoff, aye.
Nap aye.
Bailey, aye.
That's right.
Yeah, right.
Motion carries.
Sale of tax deeded land, I propose putting out for bid the following properties. On map 102, which is Longshore Drive, lot 74, which is 3/10 of an acre. It's only 35 feet wide at the road and 50 feet on the water, 320 feet deep. I would call that a spaghetti lot. Lot 10275, which abuts it on the same side, which is 3/4 of an acre on Longshore Drive. So if they get both of them, it would make for a larger lot together. Map 224, Castle Rock, parcel 56, which is .22 acres, parcel 63, which is 1.7 acres, 64, which is 1.3 acres, 65, which is .59 acres, and 70, which is .18 acres. And then on Young Road, map 115, lot 36, plot 1, which is 2/3 of an acre. We would retain the lot on Castle Rock that is at the end of the road. I know the fire chief has significant concerns with going down over the hill that would access that. There is a steep hill and no turnaround. I would have two other ancillary questions to this. One, do you want to restrict any of these bids to abutters only? And how would we make people aware of the sale? So with those are the questions. Do you want to sell this listing of lots? Do you want to put any restrictions on them? And how do you want to advertise it?
Board comments?
I have a question.
Tracy, please.
Are you, I have no idea if this is possible, but are you allowed to approach the abutters first? Take time to see if they would like to purchase the
We
property?
have done that in the past.
And then put them out?
Yeah, we have sold
Would that be
them.
appropriate?
We've
Okay.
done this.
Right.
It's appropriate.
Well, I
So
mean,
one of the things that we've experienced with that is that we've done it and the last time we actually put them out, we received pretty significant bids on most of the lots. And it has driven the price up a little bit. The one probably exception to that was there was a tiny little wedge of a lot at the end of Green Hill that we were approached on buying, but to stay consistent with our process, we put out and they ended up getting substantially cheaper than what they were probably offering originally on it. But that's been the experience we've had on those.
Before we move forward on this, I would like to entertain a motion to save map number 224, lot 56. I believe that's the one you want to save at the end of Castle
No,
Rock.
60, lot 60.
Lot 60?
Which is not even on.
No, on the-
It's down underneath.
Down here.
I recommend the board
yeah.
not sell lot 224, lot 60. Yeah, I mean, I assume that all you're going to do is make a motion to sell the group that's bulleted.
No, but the items that are in the grouped area still require going down over that hill to get to, if I remember.
Only, one of them is on the side of the hill, yes.
Yeah, there are a couple of them that fit down in it.
Yes.
That's one or two, I thought there were two.
There's one or two going down over the hill that they're gonna have problems with the driveway.
Yeah, if we can get those put back in the tax, that'd be great.
Right, which to me would say if we've got two that are already down over the hill, why wouldn't you do the third one as well?
Well, if you can sell those two to an abutter who owns on the top of the hill, and then they could combine it and use the area That's the logic of the one at the top.
Do we have a minimum amount that we want from some of these pieces of property?
Yeah.
Usually you retain the right to reject any or all proposals.
Oh, I understand that aspect, but we're not going to go with a minimum bid?
I don't think any one of these would warrant a minimum bid, although the combination of 74 and 75 on map 102 might, if two of them then became buildable. But in the past, the board was trying to avoid encouraging building on Longshore Drive, so they weren't doing that.
So can I have a motion from somebody, please, to take the bulleted items and put them up for sale to the abutters, and if the abutters fail to bid a substantial amount, we can turn around and change that and go up to the public?
I would make a motion to carry on to butters, but
Well, it may
I
be,
disagree with that because we did it the last time by putting it out.
okay, we can vote, we have that. Any other, we have a motion, do I have a second?
can I amend the motion to?
You certainly
so
can.
To only go out to the abutters for anything under 0.5 acres?
He was able to say something and get up at the end.
It's still a lot of record. Even under half an acre, it's still a lot of record, which means it's allowed to be.
I'm not sure any of these under a half an acre could be built on, given the situation where they are and the shape.
I think it's courteous for the homeowners that abut them to be able to, for the ones that are 0.3, 0.18, 0.22. Well,
We should just do all or none. That's my recommendation. How would you
then
like that?
I will withdraw that and let you guys decide how you would like to proceed.
Did you withdraw just the half acre or the whole
No, I'm
motion?
going to withdraw the motion.
The whole motion.
I like the abutters.
Does anybody? Do we have anybody else that wants to talk about these?
I mean, I think we definitely know that with lots 63, 64, 65, they are going down through that gully. So they're lots that would require a fair amount of improvement to make them
You can
suitable.
probably can grow grapes on them, it'd be better.
Right.
Better use of the property.
Well, they probably couldn't get a building permit because the Board of Selectmen wouldn't be able to approve the road not being safety for the fire department.
All right, so,
Well, can I ask a question?
so what I'm gonna ask, hang on, go ahead.
How did the residents that are beyond there get building permits?
That was before they had the,
That's with us. We're the abutters.
oh, okay.
They're the ones up on the hill.
That
Okay.
are looking for our road to get improved, and someone's
Hang on,
going to do
Jim.
that.
That was before, we haven't always had the private road class 6 policy.
There's some discussion that needs to take place publicly before we can really make an appropriate.
It's gonna happen, Tracy.
Okay.
So,
It's not something you admitted.
I mean, we already have homes in there. You know, now we're talking about like restricting it. I would figure out, what I would think is we would want to find a way to enhance that and get it to where it's, well, not only safe, but it's, that it becomes more viable from a use standpoint. And also when somebody did buy it, they wanted to put a house in there, they actually could put a house in there.
It's gonna be very hard to fix that hill with the swamp at the foot, where the brook goes, culvert goes under.
There's no culvert.
Well,
there's not even a culvert there, that may be part of the reason it's a swamp.
Where are you?
Who allowed it
You
to
down
get put in there in the
bottom?
first place?
Everybody else does.
Right. I mean, I would think whoever you have bidding on those, you want somebody that's gonna have a plan. They've gotta be connected into the plan to fix that road.
That'll have to go to the planning board first, then they have to go, if they want any changes, they'll go to the ZBA and come down that way.
How about doing this?
Permit has to come here.
Would
So
it-
I would suggest that we, someone make a motion for the 4 pieces of property to go up for bid.
I'd like to
hear
listen
what
to
John
John.
wants to say. Yeah.
Okay?
One possibility is take the 3 lots that are not on Castle Rock and put them out for bid and see what comes in. That's the the narrow lot and the bigger, the 3/4 acre lot beside it,
102.
and the one on Young Road, which is 2/3 of an acre. Put those out, just straight up out for bid. Put the Castle Rock parcels out as a request for proposal in which the person has to come in with a proposal on how they're gonna handle the road and deal with the road and what they're willing to pay and what kind of a commitment they're willing to make, so that we can combine selling those lots with getting the road improved.
And a timeline on that.
Yes, yes, I mean, I think we've got to write a tight spec, but I think that's the way to, so that you deal with the 102 and the 115 maps separately from the 224 map.
So I'll make a motion to put maps 102 lot 74, map 102 lot 75, and map 115 lot 36 out to bid.
And I'll second it.
Now, is that two abutters?
No, that's
No,
No,
straight
it's
out
out
to
to
bid.
bid.
Straight out to bid.
straight up to bid.
Now, okay, go ahead.
Any further discussion? Have a vote, please. Tracy?
Aye. Hardikoff, aye.
Nap aye.
Bailey, aye.
Hatch eye?
Okay, now and then, map 224, to put it out to proposal for development with repair of the road and timelines associated with, a commitment and timelines associated with it.
Yes.
For map 224?
For map 224, each of the lots, parcel 56, 63, 64, 65.
I assume all the parcels go in there together.
Yes,
When they-
70 doesn't really impact any development because it's on a corner,
Right.
but the others are all
But
tied
it
to
does
that.
not include 60 at this point.
No, that's,
Which is the one
we
at
left
the end.
60 up. We have a motion?
Andy moved.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll second.
All right, do we have a second? It's been seconded. Have a vote, Mrs. Hatch?
Aye.
Bailey, aye.
Nap aye.
Hardikoff, aye.
That carries 4-0. Sure, the vote shows that Mr. Ayer has abstained on both votes, please. The last one is recommendation not to sell lot 224,
I don't-
map 224, lot 60.
You don't need a motion on that.
So, does anybody object to not selling that? Hearing none, hearing none. Oh, you object to not selling that?
Yeah, why wouldn't we? We're doing the others. I understand that the fire department would want a turnaround or something up there, but my recommendation on that would be part of the contingent of whoever took that lot. It would be that there would have to be a turnaround at the end for fire apparatus.
Before we go any further, I would like to ask, I'm there, John. I'm going to ask Fire Chief if he'd come speak to that, please.
Thank you.
But they're talking about repairing the road.
First of all, I have no issue with selling any of the lots. I think that what I really wanted to make sure, and I think you touched on that, I'm not a huge fan of buyer beware. That road was put in a number of years ago when houses got put in, and that going down over that big hill and coming up the other side can be very dangerous. The people who live up there do as good a job as they can to try to keep that maintained, but we do still have winter in New England that means ice and snow and stuff like that. The fire code states that there's, you can't have any more than a certain grade. So to add any more homes in there, by the state fire code, if the town didn't make the requirements to make them upgrade, the fire department can and would. And all I want you guys to do is make sure that anybody that bids on that understands just the kind of work they're gonna have to do. I don't believe for 1 second that we should ever sell a piece of land and then after somebody buys it with the intent they could buy a house and then have the town, whether sue the fire department, whatever, stands there and says you gotta put $100,000 in this road to build a house. I don't think that's reasonable, I don't think it's right. So I'm 100% on board with if you can sell the land and get it back on the tax roll and somebody can build a house out there in that very nice, it's a nice quiet area out there, I'm all for that. But I just want people to understand that whoever buys that piece of land, they could incur a significant expense in road upgrades. So that's what I want you guys to do. The other side of that is, I would ask that on the last lot in there, lot number 60, that you clearly cut out a piece of land that says that the town's gonna retain that for turnaround for eternity, because you guys dealt with an issue up on Wildcat Road where somebody put a turnaround in their driveway a couple of years ago. And, you know, that was all well and fine 30 years ago when the guy built it and said the town can have a turnaround there. And now, the people that currently own this don't want a turnaround there. There's a driveway all the way up on the end, and I'm not talking about Castle Rock Road, but it's important to understand that you're not talking about making a turnaround just for a fire truck. These people in there need service trucks, they need propane trucks, they need oil trucks, they need utility companies to go in there. Whether it's UPS or FedEx or whoever, there needs to be a turnaround on that road for anybody to turn around. It's not reasonable for anybody to use somebody's private driveway to turn around because it either went up that road and didn't realize it was a dead end, or they went up that road and missed the driveway they were going to, so they turned around in somebody's private driveway. People own them driveways, they maintain them, and they shouldn't have stuff turned around. I don't think anybody up there, I can't speak for the people who live up there, but I don't think anybody cares if a fire truck and ambulance turns around their driveway. But about the 10th time an oil truck turned around in my driveway, I mean, if we go into the towns and find someplace else that oil truck turn around. So, again, I'm not against selling this, but I really want the 4 of you or 5 of you to make it perfectly clear to anybody that buys that there'll be significant upgrades done to the road before they can build. And I would strongly encourage you to carve out a turnaround on that road so that for all of eternity, whoever lives out there isn't faced with, there's a turnaround for them and emergency vehicles and fuel vehicles. So, thank you.
I'd like to make a motion that we do not sell that piece of property.
So,
Yeah, go over, Mike.
I was going to make a motion to sell it with the conditions that there's a turnaround on the lot,
All right.
an appropriate turnaround on the lot that meets,
I made it-
before the design is,
Okay.
meets his recommendation and also,
Now, what happens if three,
He hasn't finished. And also,
and also that the rest of the road meets whatever conditions that the fire department would be requesting of that.
what happens if 3 people bid?
What do you mean?
One person bids on one lot, one person bids on another, and the third bids on a third lot.
That's not the way the bid's set up.
one group is all together
Then we
and
have to
60 is
do
by
it.
itself. 60 is
Right.
by itself
So-
and everything else is
So the
together.
bottom would all be together, those 4 down below.
Okay,
And then the upper one would be a separate one that someone could bid on, but they still have to meet the conditions outlined by the fire chief, which is the upgrade of the road and the turnaround at the top.
So I
Which may
made,
make it like to where it's just not feasible for somebody.
so I've made a motion, do I have a second? Seeing none, motion doesn't carry. We have another motion?
Andy's motion.
what's the motion?
He just
George had made a motion before Andy. to
My motion did not
sell
carry,
it.
he didn't have a
That
second,
didn't
so it
get a
didn't
second.
carry.
So then
So now-
Andy was talking about a motion, so now.
So
now it's Andy's turn to
So
put his
I make,
motion.
I make a motion to sell the lot with the conditions precedent that the fire chief has established, and I would write that right into the sale agreement.
The quitclaim deed and the
Yes.
sales agreement.
So that means we'd have to go to the planning board for a lot line change.
No, we don't.
You sure? Well, I'll get right,
I don't think you can get it to
if,
turn around.
Mr. Air, if you want to speak, you have to come over here.
But you don't offer public comments.
I know I haven't got that far yet, I'll get there.
So easy on the chastising.
I know, I'll take it, he's got to understand how it is too. All right, we have any other public comment? John?
Yeah, on the concept of the 3 lots all being together in one group thing, if they get sold as 3 individual lots, they can come in and ask for 3 individual building permits. I think the town really needs to merge them lots and make it one lot before they make it to sale, so then it's obvious they're buying one lot.
Good point. Any comments, John? All right.
Public comment?
Yes, you can give public comment.
I abstain from this. I am a butter on there, and I'm well aware of the conditions. But we should make a recommendation too, that the association, if you join the association, the turnaround, the town cannot do anything on private roads, put any money or any effort into a private road. So, part of the conditions is that the turnaround be part of the Castle Rock, and the ownership will be in the association's name. So that will protect the chief, the road, and the turnaround will be in the association's name, who maintains the road.
Any further comments from the board?
And that will all have to be surveyed and all line adjustments.
I'd like to tell you I'm understanding all of this, but I'm woefully ill-prepared to.
Can I make a comment on what he just...
John, hang on a minute. Okay. You have anything else you want to do with that? Any other comments, Tracy? All right, John?
I think I can explain your dilemma. It's a class 6 road.
Yeah.
So the town could reserve that piece out as part of that road's right of way, because it's still a class 6 road. No matter what, it's a class 6 road. So you don't have to deed that to the association. It could just be part of the town's right of way, which is the class 6 road.
Okay.
Which you would establish when you built that lot.
I thought that was a class 6 road.
Any other public comments?
Private.
Was it a private?
Please state your name and your address.
Jason Escotti, 96 Castle Rock Road.
All right.
I've been there since 2003. I am the lot before lot 224, which would be the proposed turnaround. I appreciate Chief Walker's concerns about future residents. There are current residents there, and if there's an opportunity to have the land developed and to enhance a turnaround and to create more safety for the current residents, that's certainly what we want. There are 2 families. I have 4 children, and I'm the last, so I know all about the turnarounds in the driveway because I get them. There's a family at the bottom of the hill, and there's a young couple that moved across. So there are 3 families. At some point, town officials approved building of those lots and occupancy of those lots. And so I do appreciate the earlier comments that now we're kind of changing the rules. And so I understand that there needs to be upgrades, and I would just like the opportunity for bidders to be able to do that. So that we can have a safer living situation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comment?
Castle Rock is a private road. It's not class 6. It's private. There's an association formed in it. Everyone belongs to it.
Chief Walker.
Just to clarify, and you know, the issue comes back to in a private road, and there's already a bad situation, and 100% of my comments are geared toward making a bad situation better, and I certainly hope that you can sell those lots and somebody will buy and build houses out there and certainly improve the road so that it's safer for everybody. All I'm getting at is that you know, those requirements are there, and I think it's important that whoever might bid on that property, it's made clear in the bid spec that there'll be considerable upgrades that will be required to be done before they can do it. The other side of that is when you, I want to avoid the issue that you have out on Wildcat Road, in which there's I certainly appreciate the fact that put the turnaround in and deed it to the road association so it's part of that. But what I really want to avoid is I'd like the town to put some restrictions on so that you can't put a driveway attached to that turnaround. That's really what I'm looking for, because up on Wildcat, that's what happened. And you're well aware of what I'm talking about. And again, learn from our mistakes and let's not do that again. So really all I'm asking you to do is put stipulations in, and if you carve a piece of land out and give it to the road, so that's the dedicated turnaround, and it would be part of the improvement. You'd also put stipulations in that the driveway that would service that lot that's near that turnaround would have to be X number of feet away so that they're not using that turnaround. That's really what I'm looking at.
Yeah, can we amend my motion to reflect the chief's request that the turnaround is not part of the driveway?
This is in the conditions of the fire chief, okay?
Yes.
Yeah,
Whoever seconded needs to re-second it, please.
there isn't a second.
There isn't that, that's what we're waiting on.
All right, I'll second it.
This young lady would like.
No, I think it clarified what I.
Excuse me, if you please come up, if you,
I'm okay.
okay, thank you.
So you seconded it, George?
I did. Any further discussion?
Just so I'm understanding, you're not merging the 3 lots into 1 lot, you're going to sell them separately, and the one you were holding back, you're,
We're,
go ahead.
sorry, they will remain as separate lots, but they're being sold as one parcel.
Okay,
Because of the development that needs to
is
take
required,
place.
okay.
So what you're saying then is 74 and 75 are going to be sold together.
No. Map
Okay.
224,
Okay.
56,
Okay, because
63.
when you said that,
That's why I did them as separate motions.
oh, I know you
did
did, but what
102,
you just said
102,
now
and
was not
115
the way we
separate.
did it. Okay, that's correct, all right, so,
But lot 223, or map 223, parcels 56, 63, 64, 65, 70 is like a BOGO in this case.
we said there was gonna be one thing.
Are one with the conditions precedent that we set that they have to have a development plan to upgrade the road and bring it to approved road conditions or fire, whatever the right term is for that.
It's timeline.
The fire chief's
Yeah,
recommended.
The fire chief's recommendation,
Improvements, yeah.
recommended improvements to meet fire standards. They have to have a timeline on it, and there was one other piece that I'm missing. We've gone around the horn on this a few times. So like that takes care of that lower section, and then selling lot 60 was the recommendation. We had already agreed on those on Castle.
I understand it, so as the way you were stating it, I wanted to make
Right.
sure it was correct. All
Lot
right,
60 is where we were at, which we were discussing now.
we're gonna have a turnaround, and we're not gonna be able to have the driveway adjacent to it,
Right.
and they have to make the other repairs to the road, as stated from the building
Fire.
official and the fire chief.
Yes. So it requires upgrade to the road, a driveway that is not attached to a turnaround with a turnaround at the end of.
And the town would retain the portion of land.
The town doesn't retain
No.
any piece
No,
of
we
that
don't.
Okay.
because the town, being it's a private road,
Okay,
it would just become part of the condition precedent for the building of that lot.
gotcha.
One of the problems on Wildcat was the word temporary,
Right.
in that the turnaround was stated to be temporary, by which the planning board meant temporary until Wildcat went through to Swain, and the owner thinks temporary is less than 20 years.
And it was never defined in the.
It was never accurately defined.
That's why I want to make sure this is, when you put it out there, is very clearly defined as
Yep.
to the expectation.
Yep.
That way, ultimately, it should create a betterment for all the folks on the road, and it should enhance the value of the property moving forward for everybody tied to it.
Yes.
We have a motion, we have a second?
I'll second that.
Second, I thought you did second.
I did.
No, yeah.
We have a second, and we're going to have vote, Mrs. Hatch. Haley, aye.
Snap by.
Mark, aye.
And I would suggest we try to do this for the May 14th meeting, for the due date. May 14th puts it out just a little over a month. That's long enough to notify the abutters on all of these, and
Is that
then
acceptable with everyone?
put it in the paper.
That date acceptable with everyone?
I would also,
No concern.
I would also just like to say thank you for holding off on doing this. I know we originally talked about this back directly after the first of the year and putting property out for sale right at the beginning of the new year versus after tax time is a much better decision, so thank you.
Okay. Update on the legal memo. I've changed the names. I missed one. For some reason, I got Ron St. Jean changed as moderator in some, but in the earlier version, it wasn't corrected. It's now corrected in this proposed memo. Basically, since no one board member has legal authority apart from the board, the policy is the board as a whole needs to make the decision to go. And this just gives them the names to respond to. So does the board wish to adopt the revised NHMA memo, making clear that Ron St. Jean is the moderator?
Yes. I'll make that motion.
Chair Bailey, I have a question.
Please.
I think that in reading through this, John, and I tried to do my best to understand it, but at one point in reading the legal memo, there was something in here about contacting the attorneys, and that if Chair Bailey were to contact the attorneys, you had to be CC'd on all requests from the attorneys.
Yes.
Is that typical? And the reason I ask that, and I certainly, should he need to contact the attorney in reference to something? I think of this when I think of structure and corporate compliance.
Yes.
In corporate compliance, if you need to report the president of an organization, you report them, and the same is true of asking questions. If Chair Bailey doesn't retain the right to ask the attorneys questions and not have staff from the town CC'd, it appears to me that you then couldn't ask questions or do your due diligence on things. Not that I ever think it would occur, but...
Well, it should, I mean, clearly if he wanted to question something about me and go to the labor attorney, he'd have that right separate from here.
Okay.
What this is referring to is, in order for the planning, for the Board of Selectmen to remain fully informed, if all requests go through me, I can let them know, well, the zoning board is asking this, or library is asking, well, library is the exception. The Recreation Commission has a question or something like that, so that basically it keeps me in the loop and I'm able to keep the board in the loop. I would say the only, if you want to add a sentence in there, would be included on all, CC'd on all requests other than it's an employment issue related to the town administrator or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's appropriate.
Amend that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Madam Chair. Chairman.
Yes.
John, since we have a new board member, can you explain to me if the legal assistance here will conquer, what's her name? The free service?
Oh,
Yeah, there are two, we have a number of attorneys which we pay, and then the municipal association, as part of the dues, provides two attorneys that answer questions. They're putting on the workshop. When you go to the workshop, you'll get to meet both of them. They're excellent. They really understand municipal law, and they will answer questions without any cost to the town.
Great.
Now, they will not answer, say you want to ask, well, my zoning says this, and what does that mean? They're not going to get into a town's individual zoning, but they'll answer on state law.
Yeah. Very good.
So, on all requests other than employment matters involving the town administrator. I'll add that phrase, and with that, I'll send it.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Any other comments? Thank you, John.
Is there a motion to adopt those memos?
Motion to adopt it as amended.
Yep.
Don originally moved.
Oh, Don.
Second, I'll second.
Second,
Okay.
whatever.
Hard bye. Sorry about that.
Bailey, aye.
Who used to have this worked out?
Hatch, aye.
It's your turn.
Hatch, aye.
Air aye.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Cemetery program, cemetery program's going to come up in technology reports, so I'll leave that for Andy. And just for information, we're working on paving bids. We hope to have them soon for review.
Do we have a
Rebroad,
list- Do we have a list of the roads?
no.
Then how can we have paving bids if we don't have a list of the
Well, no,
roads?
that's what you need to have before you go to the paving bid. That's what I'm
Right.
saying, is I don't
Okay.
have the information to proceed.
Just to make a point, this really kind of exemplifies what I've been talking about year after year, that the prior year, we should have a plan of what we want to pave the next year, so that when we come in, we already know what's on deck. The only thing Peter would be doing would be validating that what he's looking to pave this year has not changed based on winter repair, winter conditions, things that have happened to the road. It's just a strategic planning piece that we seem to drop the ball on.
At one point, John, we had a list of roads that were supposed to go out to a 5-year period, and that seems to have gone by the wayside.
No, these 5 are on that list that the engineer developed.
Okay, would you make sure you get a copy of that list to Andy, so Andy can see the proposed list to do over those years?
I'm waiting for the list myself.
Thank you.
When I get it, I'll pass it on.
Chairman?
Yes,
Right now, I am bidding a lot of projects and stuff, and right now, we're not gonna get good bids. We're gonna get higher bids because we wait so late. Well, all the towns already bid it already. They already awarded the things. So the pavers have the work. So time is an essence to get it out there. Oh, I know people get sick and stuff, but we need to get it out soon because we're not gonna get a good price.
Information, the rebroadcast of the meetings is now on YouTube as well, if you want to watch. And ideally, we'll get the planning board up on that as well. Good news on the truck bids, we're getting a 2000...
excuse me. I did have the opportunity to go on YouTube and see it, and it really is a lot better than turn around and wait until 8 o'clock or 8 o'clock, turn around and watch it on the television. It really is there. It just works out wonderful, and I want to thank whoever put that forward
Should have been doing
is there.
the last two.
Yes.
John?
Yeah, you get closed captioning.
Yeah,
I like
John?
that.
What does it pertain to?
This is what he's about to say.
But you can at least.
Yeah, I got a comment.
On what?
Yes.
The truck bids?
Yeah.
Hasn't got there yet. We're gonna get there. Be patient.
I want to correct him.
Need a special.
My understanding is the Ford dealer's bid on the 2017, he had sold it by the time we told him we wanted it, so he's ordering a 2018, same specs, same money. That's my understanding.
See, even a blind squirrel finds enough.
Gotcha.
That's right.
The positive unintended consequence,
Yep.
fabulous. May I, if I could, it's important to note, there was an error in our calculations when we discussed that at the last meeting, and I would not like the town to think that we were willing to spend $9,000 more than another bid, and I think it's important to mention.
That was right around the $3,000 mark
Yeah,
you referred
it's
to.
about what it worked out to.
Chairman?
Please?
John, this is my thoughts, my understanding. If I wouldn't order a truck, it's gonna be a 19, not an 18. Because they're always like a year ahead. They're bringing in the 19s. So we might end up with a 19.
That'd be even better.
It'd be better.
The blind squirrel found 2 nuts.
Yep.
Oh,
John, move on, please.
Economic development, we have an update, Hard Rock, that's in my report. They're at design stage, they're still working on what they need to get started of the rock removal and the site preparation that's down behind Liberty Truck. I have listed a court of honor for an Eagle Scout. Actually, I believe Elijah William Obney is not in the Boy Scout program. He's in a different scout program. He's in a different program that
Trail Life?
Trail Life, and he's getting an award in that one. So that's a correction on what I have here. There are, however, 2 Eagle Scouts coming forward that.
I have one to recognize tonight, and I will make up proclamations on the other 2 for the next meeting.
Elijah was the individual who did the fundraising toward the
Yes.
cruiser and
Painting
ended
on
up
the
coming up
cruiser,
with
yeah.
like triple the money that they were targeting.
Yeah, he was very successful, but I was wrong in calling it an Eagle Scout. It's
Yeah,
a
it's
different
a
title
Trail
for the
Life.
different Trail Life program.
I remember him standing before us.
And then I have a copy of the goals, which we're going to get to later.
Anything else, John?
Nope, that's all I have, thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to old business. Under old business, we're going to review the goals of 2016. I think think everybody has a copy of that was sent out to you to review. And if we have individuals that would like to comment, or changes they'd like to see, I would appreciate it. Anybody have any comments?
I do.
Go ahead, Ted.
Thank you, Arnie. Basically, looking at this list, and I'm the first one to admit, I'm a computer illiterate, I don't like them, but it's a necessity. The tech committee has made good strides this year and brought up a lot of software and stuff. This YouTube is one of the examples and stuff. I think we met a lot of them goals, and we're working on other ones. And so I'm very happy for the tech committee. I illiterate on computers. Thank you, Jack.
Tracy, please.
Chair Bailey, could we just go through these and maybe list 100% completed, 50% completed, not completed at all, just so I can have an idea of where you're at with all of these goals, and then maybe we propose new goals?
These are the 2016 goals that were adopted on 7/25, and for those of you, I'm not going to do that. Establish a technology committee to develop and approve the town's use of technology. Item 1, develop plans for upgrading software and hardware associated with municipal operations that is fast and efficient for municipal employees and town residents.
It's in process.
Is it 50%?
Yeah, it's actually, after we vote on it tonight, it'll go a lot farther.
Okay.
Yeah, we're hoping.
It's either gonna
So
go
we're-
really far or it's gonna crash to
We're
a
75% complete, you're ready to make
Yeah.
recommendations, great,
Yep.
thank
The
you.
next item is develop a list of all current hardware, software, and the use and licensing and ownership costs.
John had done that for us a while back.
Should be updated.
Yeah, needs to be up.
So
it needs to be updated.
75% complete?
Yep.
Okay.
Review and evaluate current systems versus other town systems versus recommended systems.
I would say that was accomplished
That's
because
complete,
that's 100%, I would say.
Yep.
Thank you. Review hardware replacement schedules.
75%, we're still
Yeah.
working. That's gonna be an ongoing item. As you evolve and you do things, you're constantly gonna be
Right.
upgrading.
Right.
Review redundancy and backup systems. Item 4.
Well, that, with the technology committee, we're probably at least, probably 75 to 80%,
Yeah.
because we've got to order a piece, but we were agreed on what we want. and-
Which is what we're gonna talk about again
Yeah.
tonight.
Okay, so you're making good progress, it's
Yeah,
just.
It's taken us
We're really
a
getting along
solid
well on
year
all of that.
to get through all this and figure out what the right
Yeah.
hardware's been.
The next item is review the phone system and internet connectivity to decide whether to buy phones, change providers, or continue with current lease arrangements.
We were probably 25% because we had to do these other items
Okay,
in order to move forward on it.
Yeah,
Now
and
that
we're gonna have to automatically renew for another year, so we gotta make a
that's
decision.
May,
It's May, yeah.
so we have a little bit of time, but we had to get the server piece in place in order to do that, and now we're ready to roll.
is your phone system over the internet?
It's not, but
Okay.
that's what we're looking at, was we're turning on the dark fiber so that we had fiber and then going to
Okay.
a voice over.
Yep.
Next item is develop a plan to expand scanning of legacy documents. 1-1.
So we're at 0% on that?
Well, number 1, we've reviewed the laws. That's been done. We have not, that one, yeah, the review and the recommended retention and current revisions, I think that's probably 100%. But the problem becomes we're at 0% on number 2.
That's one of the items we're looking at moving forward on this summer.
Yeah, maybe 25% on 3.
Okay.
So that's why overall, I'd be willing to give a 25 for the whole project at this point.
Any other questions on 2? Item 2, using existing documents, review and recommend long-term plan for space needs for all town functions, including recreation, library, fire, police, public works, and town office functions. think they've got about 15%.
15%.
Oh, I think it's more than 15.
You think so? Okay,
We've
what
done
would
a
you
lot,
think?
but we haven't gotten anywhere with it. It's, after numerous meetings and plans, it just,
But in terms of, you know, I think we've developed what the space needs are, and we've been good at that, but we haven't been able to implement any plans to go beyond that because of town meeting vote or funding or, you know, other things like that, so.
So in reference to that, I heard at the last board meeting in town comment, and I think the gentleman's name was John Hastings, or at least his last name was
Mike
Hastings.
Hastings.
Mike Hastings, okay. So he stood up and he requested that the town focus next from a planning perspective on this. So in reviewing that, you've taken care of the space needs assessment, but we're only what percentage of the way to recommending a long-term plan?
25 maybe?
Okay,
Because I'd say the library has their plan.
okay.
Fire is in pretty good shape for the next 10 years. Police, we know we got an issue, we've analyzed the issue, we're working on it.
Okay.
Public Works, we've made continuing steps on a brand-new building that we built 4 or 5 years ago, but we haven't yet transitioned from the old building to the new building, which would involve probably building office space and some other stuff. But we've actually got the biggest piece for the highway garage already built.
so in the last two years, we've poured a floor in it and put a heating system in the building. It was just a shell
Okay.
2 years ago.
Okay. So you have, so your long-term plans are much more than 25% because you have what you need. I'm not saying they're ready to go through, but you have recommended plans.
No, there are still the
Not all
progress.
of them.
Okay.
Well, and the thing is, not all of it's written down, like even the Public Works, if you were to say, where is it written out, you
Okay.
won't find it written out.
Okay, I understand
That
that.
needs to be
Okay,
done on there.
thank you, that's helpful.
Review and recommend changes on personnel policies.
Ooh, 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 pick me.
I picked you, go
Thanks.
ahead.
I
So-
would suggest we delegate it to Tracy.
So, Tracy,
I left
if you would be
good on this,
interested,
Tracy.
I have, John and I have been going through them, and there's a whole list of kind of comments, notes, things like that, but I would gladly email everything I have over to you, and we can utilize your HR skills and profession to review our personnel policies.
I would like to request
And then
that we have John
Bring that
and,
back before the board.
Can you get Greyhound coming, Tracy?
Greyhound, Amtrak.
would you
No, it's
understand?
honestly, I'll meet with you, and
Got a motion
you and I
on
can
that.
talk about everything that
And
So-
I've worked on.
Just,
so what I'm asking is that Tracy would take over and work with John on item 3, item 1, 2, and 3, under item 3.
so I just need to be very clear on something because I haven't and will not be attending the training until June. For a select person, because this is my profession, do I take on any legal liability making recommendations in the position that I'm in?
My understanding is you're covered because you're doing it as a board member and you're covered by insurance, but you may want to check with your own insurance carrier.
That was something that.
They also recommend you
I'm
that.
just saying I don't know that answer.
That's, yeah, so I can't answer that question until I find out the answer.
Well,
I
So,
would- I would get my
Per the
carrier.
NHMEA,
No.
there was, you are represented, the town would represent you in, for any decisions or any work that you're working on while operating in a town capacity.
Okay,
So that was something that.
Okay.
I can run that by our insurance.
that's
carrier.
fine. So then I'd be comfortable doing that, but as
Right.
long as there's no liability based on my,
So
You're
Tracy's
coming.
getting A, B, and C.
She's getting all-
No, she
no,
goes-
A has already been handled.
1, 2, and 3 she's getting.
No,
She's
no.
getting,
She's getting it all.
I think she's getting B and C.
Oh, okay.
3, B, and C.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah, so
yeah.
in reference to reviewing the compensation plan, do you actually have a written comp plan?
Yes. Well, not as thorough as you might like, but we
So-
do have something.
I'll read through that, but based on my business, I'm not sure. I'll look at it, but yeah, I'll look at it, but I won't accept C because it is what I do for a living, so.
It's already in pen, too late.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way.
1, 2, or 3.
Why wouldn't you accept C?
Because I get paid a tremendous amount of money per hour to review compensation plans and make recommendations.
Yeah, but you ran because you love this town.
I absolutely, I will look at it and I will say.
Now, you don't have to get too technical.
Thanks, Dan. Thank you. Moving on to item 4, encourage economic development. Well, we're already moved on with that,
Yeah.
on 125, so what's that,
Right.
about 65?
65, 70%?
Probably 75%, because then,
They haven't got all the permits in place
Part-
yet either, so.
right, but that's a huge swath right there. And we've looked at Redemption Road, and in order to really do something on Redemption Road, which would involve blasting, there's a pretty significant cost that I don't know if many places would be willing to bear that other than maybe who's already currently in there.
I think you probably got the only vendor that's going to.
Right.
Item 2, develop and implement strategies to be more business friendly, encouraging both new businesses and retention of existing businesses.
I think we're at 0 because a lot of things that went forward that would have benefited the town, I feel, didn't go through a town vote. So that's a real low vote, I feel.
Any other comments on that, please?
Well, I mean, I think some things have been done through the master plan and through, what Masha's been working at.
On taxes.
It's a 0.
No, it's not a 0, but it's low, I think.
Okay, so
I'll give it
25%.
1%.
1%.
I'll give it a lot more than that.
10.
Come on, man.
Yeah, can we just go in 4% increments for the
Yes.
sake of this, so I can understand? Review September 1st recommendations, decide, you've already done
You've
that.
done that, yes.
You better
Check.
Yay.
Set a target for budget change, set the goal, you've done that.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
so that's an annual.
Right, that is an annual.
I think
So-
going forward, the budget.
Right.
So my recommendation would be to take the goals and objectives and just refresh them for current year, because I think they're all still relevant, we're utilizing them. The question is there anything else that should be added in there?
The only other thing I would suggest for strategic planning, in my experience, is that you're prioritizing these. And for instance, I would think that under 2, where you're recommending long-term plan and space needs, we would prioritize that as our number 1 priority at this point. So I think what we potentially could do is, John, are you comfortable making recommendations on moving these, prioritizing them?
I'd prefer the board actually do the prioritization.
I agree with you.
Excuse me, wait, hang on a minute. Go ahead and finish, John.
So I just said, she asked if I was comfortable. I'm willing to do it, but I think it's the board should be the one who does it. I don't disagree that number 2 should be number 1.
Right, I have no problem taking 2 and go to number 1.
All right, that's
Move number 1 to number 2.
I would certainly leave your technology as number 2.
Yeah.
I think, to be honest, in this day and age, in order to get anything done, you've got to have a great infrastructure with technology, so if you're comfortable with that, I would leave that to 2.
I would leave personnel policy then as number 3.
Okay?
And
Do we need to leave succession management in there?
I'm of the opinion it's still on the table,
yeah,
John.
I would
Is it
agree.
review, or is there a different word that we should be using for the upcoming year?
I think you could use the term propose various succession management
Yeah.
ideas.
Okay, I think
And then the
that's
board can decide, and I don't mind taking that on as well. You're going to meet and have an experience with this candidate soon enough that MMANH chooses. At that point, you'll know whether you need to do something different. And if you do need to do something different, then I'd be glad to take on drafting
I appreciate
the
that
job
very much.
description, reviewing the essential position functions, and certainly going out and making a range analysis externally to what you currently have.
Right.
And then the last item we would leave would be encourage economic development.
Yeah, and 4 would come off because it's been accomplished.
Yeah.
It's actually, they're 4 and 4.
Yeah, the
But
second
the
4.
budget, yeah.
And 5 wouldn't necessarily come off. Are you saying that every year you'll continue to review that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just, it's now baked in as part of our budget process, so I don't think it needs to be one of our goals, it's just, it's now procedure.
Any more for old business? Seeing none, we'll go on to new business. Andy, would you want to take over for smart goals, please? That's the next item.
So it's something we've talked about before. You want to pass that down page? Individual, I'm sure you're very familiar with
I am.
SMART goals.
I'm just trying to figure out when you want to use them.
So it's essentially where it's come into play is I've asked that they be used in reviews for the last 2 years, 3 years now, two plus years since I've been on the board. We've been working toward it, but we've never driven forward to actually drive the purpose of actually having SMART goals. So if we look at the goals that are established, not only with John, but also within department heads, we've never set goals that actually would meet the criteria of SMART goals.
So your suggestion is then that you revise all written position descriptions and incorporate these?
Not their written position descriptions, just their goals and objectives for the state of the year.
Which is then when they'd have their performance review, you'd be using these to define whether they've met those goals, and you would measure their performance based on that. But that takes me back to you have to revise all of the written position descriptions.
Why would you need to revise the written position descriptions?
Because you can't hold an employee responsible for meeting something outside their written position description.
What says this is outside the written position description?
Then you'd have to write them and include them in the written, we're making a cyclical argument here. So I don't disagree with you, I'm just asking who's taking on deciding what the SMART goals are and incorporating them in a position description so that they are measurable when it comes time to review the employee.
That would be something John does because John oversees all of the department heads.
Okay.
And in the written position descriptions, it says that they have to have goals and objectives.
Right.
And I believe it even defines that they're measurable in there.
Okay. John, I'm of the opinion, how many job descriptions do you have that you are overseeing?
I'm overseeing, I don't know, how many people report to me?
You have a lot of hats.
Probably a dozen.
Okay.
It's a very flat organization.
Right, so what do you propose the timeline would be for him to review that and have that ready?
Well, I know he's traveling away here, but even if we did a half-year target on it, so you set it for June, and you gave them, you amended it for the second half of the year. So it would start July 1 through the balance of the year.
And you're not suggesting that the board of select people decide what these goals should be. You're deferring that to the town administrator.
Right, because the way typically any organization works is we establish our goals, and then based on our goals, it flows down that each manager or each department head in this case would have goals that help us achieve what the overall goal of the organization is.
How do you see that interfacing the goals that we just discussed and prioritizing those? Give me an example of how you see this interfacing. Let's pick the fire chief, for instance. I don't see anything on the Board of Selectmen goals that ultimately, other than recommending long-term plan for the fire department and its functions and buildings, that you could assign to him based on the goals that we just adopted. So I'm just trying to figure out how the connectivity will take place.
So with the fire department, if you look at the fire department from a technology end,
Okay.
one of the aspects is we've been working with one of the fire officials as a member of the technology committee And one of the recommendations is that they take the same technology or an aspect of the technology that we've implemented in the police cruisers, which allows them like on-site reporting, it allows them record documentation or retention right in a system, and start looking at how do we bring the fire department into the modern technology where they can type in a report, hit send, and it goes straight to the hospital, where it goes straight to where someone is
So
being
you
transported.
would want John to say, for instance, for Chief Walker to write that between July and January, he will have achieved obtaining a technological methodology for him to record on site the following information or something like that? Is that?
Or to trial it, review it, and have a recommendation for the board on a path forward.
Okay.
So one of the pieces that we're going to talk about after this is the software we're looking at. There was a recommendation to make it CJIS compliant just for the police department, and when you look at it, it actually doesn't make sense to make it CJIS compliant for the police department. It makes sense to make it CJIS compliant across the board because it protects the data that's communicated either internal to the department or around other departments.
So that brings me to the other point, that while I don't disagree with you in wanting something like this, in that particular instance, it's quite likely that Chief Walker, in order to be sure that that technology is put into play, to go about looking into it, he had requested an admin assistant at one point part-time. It had been declined, if I'm correct in my history of this. I think that you're not wrong in wanting these. I think it may be rushing them to expect that a measurable by his next performance review could be done without considering what else would be needed in order to meet the SMART goals.
But so the next piece down in that is achievable. Are we picking something, or are we setting an expectation that is achievable? So the goal is not to set somebody into a position where we're setting them for failure, it's to set them up to drive towards success. And typically what you're going to do is you're going to set, you're going to have your low-hanging fruit goals that you go after. You're going to have something that's a middle tier, and then you may have a stretch goal.
Okay, so in looking at the select board's goals, if you look at, for instance, budget, I'm almost certain that there already is the goal set, for instance, for a position like the fire chief, that budget will be, either zero-based budgeting or that you'll follow and use the prior year's budget and it will be turned in by the following date. I guess what I'm trying to get at, Andy, is it is quite possible that many goals, measurables, and specific targets are already in their job descriptions. And this is something that takes a lot longer than the months of May and June for him to review them, look at the board's goals going forward, and put this together if it's to be done well.
So I don't know if I agree with you on that because, as I said, doing this in an organization, I'm actually doing entire team reviews and then rolling out complete reviews of all my staff.
Of one department. These are varying
I have 3
jobs across,
departments.
okay, or 3 departments that likely interact, that you're very familiar with, as opposed to 12 job descriptions that have a scope of about, maybe I'm wrong, I should not be speaking for you, John.
I have almost as many employees as the whole town.
You're doing well.
Go ahead.
A lot of departments, they started working on this already and stuff, and it sounds like a big word and stuff, but it's not. They've achieved it and stuff.
So we already have SMART goals written into some of the job descriptions?
No, we don't have. No, the department heads have worked on it last year and stuff already. And a lot of them met us.
This will be easy for some.
The 2017 goals, some of them did do SMART goals.
Okay.
And they have not done goals for 2018.
Give me my goal.
It's your goal, huh?
So that's what I'm trying to
There would
explain,
be some
this is not new, they started working on it last year.
But you're talking about having this ready to go in 2 months and then holding people accountable for it by the end of the year.
For 6
Yes?
months? I don't think that's unreasonable.
The achievable part is the key, to make sure that the goal is achievable in the time frame available.
George doesn't recognize me, I
Oh,
guess.
You gotta talk to George.
In all honesty, I think the achievement part has to be extended out. You can't expect to make these sudden changes and expect the same individual to maintain his level of productivity for the town when he has to do this. I think we need to think about, just to think about, a longer period of time so we don't interrupt the town process of accomplishment by throwing this at them. Because this is not something they can spend like 15, 20 minutes a day on. It's something that they're going to have to put a little bit more time into it. And I think maybe part of the town. So I would just ask you, as achievable, is to extend that time frame out.
But no, you do them every year, so you pick something that you think is achievable within that time frame. A perfect example is Mr. Huckins, came in and talked about how when we switched to the software, he started utilizing the software, and as much as he thought it was going to be difficult, he actually found it became a huge time savings for him and was really beneficial to make that switch.
That's part of what I wanted to talk about, because
John, make the record show with John Huckins.
yeah, so on my SMART goals, that wasn't one of the things I had. I had stuff about getting my staff trained to make them, so they can handle their job and get this stuff to make sure everybody's on board. And when we had a new program to learn the program, and, so we had a few things in SMART goals. Now, as far as the technology goes, that was something that came from us from the technology committee that we implemented after it came to us. So to hold me accountable for having a computer program and stuff in place when I have no way of looking at that whole process and how it comes to me, other than when it comes to me implementing what comes, how could I be held measurable to something that I had no control over? So to implement your goals, I'm supposed to have the technology to do it, but I gotta have it as one of my goals. When it can't be really one of my goals, I can implement what comes forward to me.
And that would be how your goal was written, is
to implement the new technology that someone gives me?
Yep.
That's a SMART goal. So if I don't get anything, then I didn't achieve my goal.
It would depend on what we're looking at, but in that case, you had technology that was rolled out, and you
But I didn't know that when
technology.
I didn't know that when I put together my stuff for my SMART goals. So let's say I said I was gonna implement that new technology. The new technology never come to me. Did I not make my SMART goals? See, that's,
No.
I mean,
So that's part of what this process is with John, and how you review it.
I don't mean to pick on Tara, but here's an example of, don't panic, Tara, don't panic. One of her SMART goals might be the completion, working with the consultant to complete the strategic plan and making sure that's presented to the Recreation Commission, because that's specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time limited. So is that fair, Tara? I mean, I didn't mean to pick on you, but I assume that would be a SMART goal if we made it for Tara.
Okay, so it doesn't necessarily relate to the select board's goals then?
No.
It relates to business that
Departmental
needs to be achieved. Okay, that's what I was...
I mean, ideally, if you're doing it right, it enriches the base organization toward achieving what the overall goal and objective is.
No, but see, that one right there actually does fit in with the long-range plan for recreation. So that one does. I think some departments are much harder to come up with a SMART goal. Tax collector, she's gonna collect the taxes, make sure that people are happy, and it's hard to develop a SMART goal in a service-oriented one.
Right, and it's hard to be happy when you're paying your taxes too, John, so I don't know if we should hold her responsible for having...
Part of what you look at that is accuracy of information in the system.
Sure, yeah.
So there are ways to do it with everybody, you just have to
I'm
I
just simply saying, starting now and having him implement by June and then holding them accountable when, I'm almost wondering if what you should do is have him update and draft the information for 2019,
Well-
since you missed the timeline.
Well, I mean, I think
Okay.
in the next 2 months, I can come forward
Okay.
with, for some departments, the problem we've had in the past is you end up with relatively meaningless goals, but they can achieve them, they're specific, and especially in some of the service departments that are, the number of complaints or something like that. That's how do you reduce that? I think in some departments, it's much easier to develop a SMART goal that has significance to the organization, such as the strategic plan, or something in the highway that we could work on related to roads, or
And as I
things like
understand
that.
it, you haven't done this yet.
No.
Okay. And is your suggestion that he present it to the select board to approve what the SMART goals are? Or are you deferring it to John as the town administrator to?
Well, it's already in John's role.
Okay,
The only piece I would ask is that it would be good to be able to share that with us so that we can see what the departments are working on. That way, we may be able to actually help support them achieve some of their goals.
okay. So this doesn't require a vote or anything, this was just a discussion because
Information.
they're still dated and haven't been updated for years.
If there isn't any more, we'll move on. Anybody else have any more questions? Thank you. We'll move on to Selectmen's report.
I can start.
Well, your name is under there for A, so would you please go ahead, Selectman, here with your report.
I didn't make the conservation last week, I was out of town. I notified the chairman.
Well, that's fine with me.
No, I don't, John Wallace, not you.
I have nothing to report either, Mrs. Hatch.
We did not have a meeting this month, we had no applications, so it was not met.
Okay, Tracy?
I have not attended a recreation department meeting yet, but I plan on doing that next Monday evening.
Very well. Mr. Knapp?
All right, all kinds of fun stuff going on. Planning board meeting, we reviewed the lot on Orchard Hill. The subdivision was approved. We also reviewed a request to subdivide a lot on 120, right on Route 9, but right by 126. Pending approval from the state on permitted driveway permit. So that was the planning board. We have a docket for next meeting as well. So that is set. Technology committee got together and met, and I will be requesting that the board vote on some items. So
Please discuss those, that's what we're waiting for. All those items, we can turn around and move with those.
So through the technology committee, we looked at quoting the new CGIS compliant Office 365. So all employees in the town, including the selectmen, will have an Office 365 email. It will give you access to Link or essentially Skype Business, so you can talk to each other. It was about $18,000, which is something we had planned for in our technology committee line, and that would roll out all 54 licenses, 13 for police, 10 for fire, 19 at town hall, 5 selectmen licenses, 5 rec licenses, and 2 highway licenses.
And that's annual.
Yep. So, and that is something that we have planned for.
In the library?
We did not add the library in there, I think, because you guys had your own plan.
You have your own domain.
System. Yeah, your own domain. So you're not tied into the network the same as everyone else. If it's something that you're interested in doing, we can also look at adding that on.
But you'd have to go to our domain extension.
Barrington, New Hampshire.
Barrington.nh.gov.
.gov/library.
Well, you couldn't do it that way.
So, and the nice part about that is it gives us 50 gig of storage for email and 1 terabyte per account cloud-based. So we would end up with 54 terabytes of data storage, which gives us far more storage than we currently or would probably use at any time in the near future from a data storage standpoint.
Right now, our electronic storage is about half a terabyte.
Yeah. So half a terabyte now, we would have 54 because it's 1 terabyte per year.
Quick question, who maintains the user's access and transfer over of historical information when an employee leaves employment?
Currently, it's the email.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Seacoast Computer doesn't, but the email addresses that everyone has are essentially individual email addresses. So you could potentially lose, and there's no obligation for them to actually turn those email accounts over. Where right now, this actually would create a way for us to, one, have legit records retention and manage and store data appropriately moving through it.
If you look at the extension, I believe the AOL account that Rick owns belongs to him. I know the Gmail account that I use belongs to me. The MetroCast extensions all belong to the town, but we've got a lot of private Gmail accounts out there.
So everybody's set up with their own email, which is why I actually got involved in this, because 2 years ago I was like, I made a comment referring to an individual political representative who was using private servers, and that didn't align well with what we were doing here as a town. The web domain, we've got the barrington.nh.gov domain back, and we have it active and live.
Did we lose it?
We couldn't get into it.
What happened was when we changed website vendors, we never could get it changed over for some reason, and only recently we were able to get it changed over. We owned it for website, but the email had to go through the state to get changed over, and there was a holdup getting it changed, so it was quite a while getting it down.
What we found happen is having a couple of really great technology people involved in this committee. They knew the right questions to ask and the right buttons to push to get everything switched back.
Yep.
So I give credit to the technology committee. They have done yeoman's work to make this all happen.
So actually, I have a barrington.nh.gov website, the email that's working.
Yep. The server-wise, we had replaced a server, and what we're looking at was for backup technology to put a, what's the?
StorageCraft.
A StorageCraft, one in the town hall, one in the police department, and they would back each other up on each other, so it creates redundancy in our system, which we currently do not have. If the town hall went up, as if John takes the tape, we've got a backup, but if
We don't have a way of running it.
yeah, we don't have a way of running it, we don't have anything to do it. It all goes poof.
It was on the hospital's technology committee for years, I get it.
So scanning technology, we have one PDFA scanner currently in the town office, and it is in planning.
Yes.
So that is the only one we currently have that we could utilize for scanning to be PDFA, so it's actually meets the state standards for compliance. So that's just an informational piece for everybody.
So are we purchasing another one?
We are not currently.
Okay.
Everything we have is currently owned, and that one is we lease that one, I believe. And the police
The
department.
police
also
one we
has-
leased, we own the one in Planning.
Okay, yes, we own the one in planning, we lease the police. So those are the only PDFA scanners.
Now, we haven't checked, Recreation just got a new copier, so the new version, you may be PDFA, we haven't checked, but that's something you could look at.
Okay.
Because they've just bought a new, you're leasing a new copy, leasing a new copy.
Andy, when we talked about storage, last meeting we discussed with me before we discussed the storage of meetings we had and what have you. Is this going to enable us to store more on there for our meetings?
What we had determined was what we're currently storing, we just back them up to an external 1 terabyte hard drive.
Okay.
And that is more than sufficient, and it is the cheapest way we can manage
External?
that storage. And we have them set up so they're redundant. We have them saved to multiple hard drives.
Thank you.
So the next one is the cemetery.
Do we need a vote on that to proceed?
Oh, I was going to go through them all and then
Okay.
do it that way. So the cemetery came to, or in this case, Rick reached out to me and asked about, it's called Cemisite software. That is a cloud-based cemetery software. Currently, they work off of little index cards and an Excel sheet that hopefully he has the piece of papers when he needs it. What has happened is they've had circumstances where people have wanted to look up where somebody was buried or find out some information, and town hall is closed, so they can't get to the actual records, but they can get to Rick, and Rick can't get to the information back in town hall. So, like if they had a cemetery plot and they're trying to figure out who owns multiple plots, they run into a little conundrum there about doing it. We looked at 3 different softwares, plus looking at even just doing it in a Google map and plotting the points in there. The problem with a Google map, it's obviously the cheapest option, but we don't own it, so people could go in and technically can move the plot points around, which is not a good thing. So the Cemisite software was a bit pricey in the kickoff because it's about $7,000 the first year. However, moving forward, the actual maintenance costs on it are about $1,800 if I remember correctly here. Yeah, $1,680. It also gives us the opportunity that if people had a personal private cemetery on their land or were interested in having that plotted for a nominal fee, which would be something we would have to determine, or the cemetery committee would have to determine, we could actually plot those points into those cemeteries for them, or if they wanted to import their family data into it for a genealogy standpoint, we would be able to have all that data inputted into this software form for ease of reference, family information, where, grandma's buried here, but grandpa's buried like 2 cemeteries over. And the other nice piece is John is gesturing to, you'd be able to actually walk through the cemetery with your phone on GPS, and you can look right at it. It's my recommendation, or my comment on it was it's kind of like Pokemon Go. You're like scanning out the cemetery.
So you're only going to keep one annual license at the 1,200 on this, you're not going to have the second one? Okay.
Yeah, so you'd be looking at about $1,680 a year to maintain it, but it would completely plot out our cemetery and create an opportunity where we could make a little bit of nominal cash if people wanted their family data entered into it, because there would be a data entry cost for us to do it. My recommendation is if we approve it, that all of any revenue that is made off of it goes back to the cemetery committee to use toward offsetting the cost of the software service.
The one other, this motion should be contingent upon the entire Board of Trustees in a meeting making a decision to go that direction as well.
Yep.
Because we've been dealing with Rick, and Rick hasn't had a meeting, so that would be a
Okay.
condition on the vote. But I recommend you proceed with this software. It's going to make it so much better in the long run.
Andy, I have a question. What information would be available if somebody picked up, say I picked up a plot, just wanted to see who was there? What information would it carry? Besides, would it carry outside information as to whether or not, what organizations they belong to or anything else of that nature?
It wouldn't be set up that way, but you could, say Rick owned a plot and he said, well, I'd like to have it tied to the fact that I was a Barrington firefighter, and that information could be entered into
And
there.
that's where the cost would come in?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
That's good. Any questions from the board? Yes, Dan.
Honey, I want to make a motion
Oh.
on the first issue.
I think Tracy had
Oh.
Tracy has a
The data
question.
entry cost, is it an annual cost or is it a one-time cost?
Well, this is set up as an initial cost. We would take over the data entry after that because it wouldn't be significant.
We're gonna
I
do,
thought
Well,
you
we
said
don't-
that families could enter information online and could choose to maintain records.
well, no, not on, well, no, not online. My understanding is the family plot, if they wanted to plot a family cemetery here, they could, do so, and we would enter the data for a
Oh,
fee.
okay.
Yeah, sorry if that
Gotcha.
wasn't clear.
I just,
Yeah.
okay.
No, I'm not planning to have anybody put anything in. It's gonna be like Wikipedia with dueling politicians changing, what they thought of somebody.
So Danny's going to make a motion before I interrupt.
I want to make a motion on the first item that you brought up, about the paying for that software.
Okay,
That was already approved.
okay, so the email software, the Office 365 for all town employees? Okay. So I'm assuming a motion to,
So how many more do you have?
Two, right?
well, there's
Let's get the first one done first before we go.
okay, and then we'll come back.
You've been work good. I appreciate your help. Let's get this done on there. So,
I make a motion to approve the Gmail accounts or the email accounts.
Office 365,
365,
which will give you
which was already been
Word,
approved,
Excel.
budgeted for.
It'll give you the entire Microsoft Suite package plus email and,
okay. Oh, that's just something else.
Oh,
For the,
whatever the.
I made the motion.
The one that's not on.
do you want to include the $18,000 in your motion, please?
I'll include the 18,000 that was budgeted, that's what I said.
Well,
All right.
when you say it was budgeted, it's coming out of contingent fund.
Right.
Yeah.
But
Right.
it was.
We already knew that.
Yep.
All right, so we have a motion, we have a second,
Chair,
please?
Question.
Chair Bailey, I have a question. Just so we're certain before we're purchasing this, the hardware that we have, will it be able to support?
Yes.
Okay, that's,
Yep.
I'm
That was-
assuming you looked at
We
it, but I,
looked at all of that
Okay.
before.
so then I'll second.
All right,
Air I.
Hatch, aye.
Haley, aye.
Nap aye.
Actually, if
Takes
there's
care
a
of that.
computer
It's
that doesn't
approved.
support it, we shouldn't be running that older computer.
kind of
No, it shouldn't be either.
I make a
Checking,
motion
you
to,
haven't said anything about hardware review, so.
Yeah.
So the next one then would be the cemetery software.
I make a motion to adopt the
And I'll second it.
semi-site.
And I'll second it.
Contingent upon the cemetery trustees agreeing.
Trustees
Oh.
approving it, yep.
For a total of, thank you
7,000.
very much. Gotta get the numbers in there.
$7,080.
$7,080.
Yeah.
Do I have a second?
Motion.
Do I have a second on
Oh,
that?
yes, we already
You
have a second.
got a motion and a second.
Okay, all in favor? Tracy, please start.
Hard copy, aye.
Nap aye.
Haley, aye.
Hatch, aye.
Air I.
Okay, you didn't take a motion on the backup software, server and everything.
Software.
And that's going to be around, I don't have the exact number with me tonight, but it's less than 6,000.
I'll make that
I think it was
motion.
like 5,600 or something was the number.
Well, I haven't got the revised
Oh,
12
that's right.
terabyte, but it should be in the
Yeah, that's
6,000.
right.
I'll second Air's motion to expend up to $6,000 for the
I'll second
backup
it.
system.
Well,
You moved it.
You moved it, how can you second it?
She jumped in.
Thank you.
Here's the issue. We got a bid on
Take control of your board.
a 6
That's what I
terabyte,
asked them to do.
and we've asked them to revise it to 12 terabytes.
What?
So we don't know how much that will add, but we felt that was worth a few $100s more, so it might go over 6 by a little. It's in the ballpark of 6.
So you want to say up to 7,000?
Yes, up to 7 would be
So,
good.
Okay.
just so you
So
know,
a
what-
revised motion
Yeah.
has to come from you, select person Air.
I give it over to you.
Okay,
I
so
withdraw
I would
mine.
like to revise your motion to accept a backup, dual backup system with expenditure up to $7,000 and 12.
12 terabyte
12
TB.
terabyte. And just to clarify, when they looked at,
So, hang on a minute. We've got a second in the motion, you want to vote on that?
I'll second that. She made it down. I am second her.
okay,
Are we voting here?
Yes, please vote.
So Hardikoff, aye.
Nap aye.
Haley, aye.
Hatch, aye.
Air I.
And the reason for the change in size was it was felt it was fairly cheap to double the capacity of
Right,
it.
we doubled the capacity for, it was like a few $100.
Yeah, we don't know the exact price, but it's not, shouldn't be.
So the other item was, we implemented PC Patrol for the police cars. And it's been very successful. In fact, Chief Williams was at the technology committee meeting and talked about having to take one of the cruisers into the shop and just very easily clicking out the unit and putting it into another cruiser, and how simple and well the whole system has worked. One of the pieces is we had talked to Will, who is part of the technology committee and also a fireman. And just for, it's Will Lenhart, just so everyone knows, and asked about demoing that for the fire department. And really what triggered that is the fire department, and I'm speaking out of my selectman's role here, but came in to do a walkthrough of the recent addition that we put on the Redemption Way building for TurboCam. And one of the pieces is we're going through, we have go bags in the event of an emergency, and in the go bags we have a thumb drive which have all the critical data of the building and the organization there. And we said, oh, well, we have the thumb drive that you can just plug into the computer on your truck, and then one of the firemen raised their hand and they're like, we don't have computers on the truck. So we have all this data available and nothing for them to be able to plug in and get to that data on, where the PC Patrol system actually is set up that way so that you can plug right into it and then open it up and pull any data. It's a good system, it's backlit, it's made in Attleboro, Massachusetts, North Attleboro, Massachusetts.
How is the data protected though?
It's, so it's all set up in a, the way their system is set up is it links into the network for the organization. So in this case, which is CGIS compliant, which means it's all secure and protected. It allows you to load data on, but it doesn't allow you to pull any data off.
So they're loading data to the county. Basically.
Right. And yeah, and the police department loads directly to the county.
Okay.
What's the cost of that?
Well, we're just looking to move forward with testing to give the fire department a chance to review it and see if it meets their needs. And then we would look at coming back at it. The other piece that we were looking at is there's been a couple of recent, the EOC grant for hazmat would be a good way to do that. So a recommendation that the board support applying for that grant, because that would be a way that we could actually utilize we could use that to purchase this
Now, would
technology.
that be something that goes through your committee or would it go through the police chief?
This would go through the fire chief.
Fire chief, sorry, I meant fire chief, yeah. All right. Any other questions to the board on that?
I would like to ask the fire chief a question.
Sure, go ahead.
Do you have interest in bringing this into your organization?
I think we want to look at anything that would certainly, again, looking at it from the perspective, much like the cemetery, we would expect the Board of Selectmen during the budget process to support the cost associated with keeping the system up and running.
Gotcha.
We would be looking for the same thing in the budget process on the fire side.
Thank you.
So do you need a motion for the fire department to do a trial?
No. I just wanted to straw poll the board and make sure you are okay with supporting it. I do request that the board support them writing an EOC grant for hazmat, if that would be the case, to help defray the cost of purchase.
We have a request for a motion to support. The motion is to support the fire chief for the chance to see if he wants that equipment, and also the EOC grant that is recommended. Do you have a motion for that?
Sure.
Ask the motion, I'm just
By the
requesting
chair.
support.
We got a motion for request and support.
Seconded.
Okay. Vote. Any further comment?
Here, aye.
I would have a vote. Tracy, would you start it, please?
Yep, Hardikoff, aye.
Nap aye.
Bailey, aye.
Hatch eye.
Here, aye.
Yep, thank you, Dan. Motion carries.
And that's it. And that's
Thank you.
Oh, did I miss something?
Just a couple of items to be aware of. We told the police chief to go ahead with replacing his computers. It's under $10,000, but he needs to basically replace all of them. Rick, I think you're getting to the point where you may need to be able to take that step in the short term, so we may need to think about budgeting for upgrades on your computers. I'm just saying, based on timing, everything in the organization, we're trying to get rid of anything before 2012, and I think all of yours are before 2012.
I use a chalkboard and a piece of chalk as long as I have enough people.
Go buy you a new piece of chalk.
John,
Buy your spoons straight too.
I have a quick question in
Yes.
reference to this. So you're purchasing new operating systems, you're bringing in new computers. Is there any training being scheduled for Windows 10 support on, I mean, it's vastly different from 7 and 8, so.
We haven't yet gone to Windows 10. We've tried to stay with Pro, 7 Pro, and that's where we're at, but we've been told that the support's gonna run out in, another year,
Right.
and so, and we're gonna have to go to 10 eventually,
So-
but when we
so,
did that, we
yeah.
had to combine it all and
So
do
as you're
the
bringing
training.
all this in, it's very different. So people who are very used to moving through Windows programs, 7 and 8, there wasn't a big difference, but 10 is I think, really different.
I found 8 more of a problem than 10, but what I did
Okay.
with 8 is I just made it.
Okay.
I just found a way to make it look like 7, and then I was done.
Yeah.
But 10 is where we're all gonna have to go eventually.
Okay.
So that is, thank you guys for bearing with me on it. That's almost a year's
That's a
worth
lot
of work.
Yeah, it's excellent. Thank you for doing it.
God love me.
I would ask that you take back our appreciation to the other technology members and their fine job, I have to tell you.
Thank you.
I will have to talk to you in private to really figure out exactly what we went through, but that would be appreciated.
It was a very
long
methodical and
process.
painful process, but we got through it.
Moving on, we have public comment. Reminder that public comments for 3 minutes. We have anybody that wants to make public comment? In this case, we could limit it to 30 seconds.
That's about all I need.
Oh.
My assistant chief just texted me. He got a scam phone call saying that these guys are collecting money for the local volunteer fire department. Isn't that ironic that the assistant fire chief got that? They suggested that he donate $25 or $50. He tried $5. If you knew him, you'd really appreciate he's cheap. But anyway, they hung this, when he wouldn't do the 25, it hung up on him. He hit the redial and got some poor lady's cell phone somewhere. So I'll work with John tomorrow. We'll get it out on social media and stuff that Town of Barrington Volunteer Fire Department had no way, shape, or form to we solicit donations from anybody, but we will once again work toward making sure that our taxpayers understand that so they don't inadvertently make a donation.
This morning's news was that Rochester had the scam going, so I'm not surprised. Once it hit the news that Rochester was a scam, then they move over to Barrington. You want to work with Peyton. I won't be around. So
Would
work
you
with Peyton.
speak to Bob about that too? Thank you. Sam,
Hello,
please.
34 Stanley Lane. Hi, thank you all. And thanks for the work on the technology bits. No pun intended on bits. Anyways, so, sorry, long day. I just want to follow up on something that Tracy said. For Office 365, it might be handy for training on that end too. You probably have it covered already, an odd, kind of very much sidebar question, but this may just be something the school has. But to have that reef and the shovel in the video that we do seems a little strange. I'm not sure there's purpose to it, but what?
We got to the old town hall, that's pretty strange too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a historical.
It's a puzzle, so it is.
That shovel looks kind of foolish.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I get a
It
nice
seems
big
little
one of.
The grapevine wreath is okay, but not the shovel.
strange. The only question, or the main reason why I was coming up here, was just to see if there was any sort of agenda or anything being formed for the April 30th meeting. I know there's been a just,
Don't listen to social media.
I don't listen.
Sam, what we're trying to do on that with the meeting is have everybody come forward with some of their goals that they would like to see, and if they have anything else that they think that we as a board, on working, all of us working together, so we can communicate with each other and get that corrected. That's what we're trying to do. We're just trying to increase the harmony. We're just trying to actually bring it back in as much as we can.
Sure.
And that's the whole idea of this.
Chairman?
Yes,
Yeah, just for example, we have a new attorney now, and we invited her to come to the meeting so people can get to meet her. I had suggested to somebody in the library that I think it was probably in one of the emails that was going around, that maybe a few minutes talking about the new library, because that's your major project and your goal. Just an update on what's going on. You know, conservation, if they got land they're conserving, recreation, you've got playgrounds, you've got strategic planning, you know, those kinds of things I think would be good to help the rest, other boards to be aware of what's happening.
good. Yeah, that's great. Tracy already sent it out to a few individuals on that side.
All right, great. Thank you.
We look forward to it.
Oh, yeah.
Any further public comment? Seeing none, I will close that public comment, and we need to go into a non-public session. On-
Do you have a board update? Your select?
I said I didn't have anything.
Oh, okay, I missed
I
that,
said
sorry.
yeah.
Got me.
You forgot Suzanne here.
Oh, Suzanne.
Oh, Suzanne, excuse me. Suzanne, do you have an update for us, please?
Yeah, I do. I have some land use change tax warrants in the amount of $14,624. And it's the time of year to accept applications for different assessing information. So I have an application for land going into current use. I have an Eagle Scout proclamation for Michael Manello to be signed. Payroll manifest dated April 1st and vendor manifest dated April 4th. There are a lot of pages to my land use change tax
I clicked that.
warrant.
Oh, I don't want you to take that.
That's it.
Thank you. We have a motion to go into the non-public session for reputation.
Can we talk about why we're going into non-public?
Yes, because we're going to discuss that new individual
Okay.
that was put forward by the Recreation Commission.
Okay.
And I am fearful of somebody,
Don't get into any
that's
Okay.
where I'm
just
at.
reputation.
Okay.
So I need to have done with that.